The story begins with the fact that the heir to the heavenly demonic cult unsuccessfully tried to find a cure for his ailment. His subordinate said that he could not get the medicine and immediately began to ask for forgiveness from the heir to the cult, dutifully leaning. Winvi with a smile replied that the energy deviation is not that you can fix it so easily, because part of it is literally destroyed. He mentally repeated the same thing for himself, because he considered himself a mediocre student because of the lower core, which was destroyed from birth, and also because of a body that is not able to hold the internal energy of Ki, so he devoted all his time to mystical arts. He went up to the title of heir to the cult of the heavenly demon, and when he nevertheless found the medicine, he realized that it was useless. Wunvi asked himself where he could find something useful, when suddenly someone told the heir to the cult that time finally came. The man who suddenly appeared opposite him asked whether he was in order while the deputy chapter was absent. Wunvi answered Kajin that a lot of time has really passed, but now he is still in perfect order, contrary to his hopes. The guy suggested that his journey on their land took a lot of time, but this time he did a great job. Hajin smugly replied that since the head and heir cannot fulfill his duties, he is obliged to ensure the prosperity of the cult. Passing by him, Winvi frowned, after which he thanked the man for his efforts, which sounded insincerely and unfriendly. Being in his chambers, he could not believe that this serpent Hajin just went on a trip to just find out how people live. Until he does something stupid, you cannot particularly worry, but you should be alert and wait for adversity at any second. Winvi could not think that he would decide to kill him in his own room, which looked very arrogant and stupid, especially for him. Clutching the glass tightly, because of which he cracked, the guy with an evil grin realized why this drink had such a murderous taste. At that very moment, he asked the killers who followed him if they want a drink too, because he is sorry that he had to drink alone. Suddenly he demanded to attack him, adding that for such an attempt they even tried to put this poison on him. When the killers flew forward, Wunvi loudly asked how they dared to attack him in his own room. They decided to attack at the same time, but the blows passed through, because of which one of the killers asked when he managed to create the illusion. Meanwhile, Wunvi was already away from them, saying that they would not achieve anything with such meager efforts. Then he added that if they decided to kill him in their own refuge, then they should have prepared better. However, such a statement did not convince the uninvited guests who were firmly intended to kill the arrogant guy. Wunvi said that he warned them that their strength was not enough, after which he released several chains with a pointed tip. The weapon appeared so suddenly that no one had time to react in time, because of which everyone was pierced by chains. Winvi, with a smile, asked the people standing behind him if it was all that they were capable of after all this training. Not hearing the answer, he extended his hand and asked if they thought that their respected nephews would be disappointed with this. Hajin and the elders were dumbfounded, because they knew that the beak of the red crane could melt the whole bull with one pinch. However, now Wunvi can still laugh after serious poisoning, and even threaten them with a self-wisdom. The guy said that if his body were slightly in the best condition, he would definitely leave a hole in his head. Hajin replied that he also shared the disappointment that he could not fulfill his dreams until this moment. He could not just stand aside and allowed him to even learn martial arts to a person to become their leader. All the elders supported him, and now they exposed their weapons, surrounding the young guy, not allowing him to escape. Winvi, with a smile, asked if they were going to attack such a puppy like him, with the whole crowd after they poked him. Hajin pointed his finger at him, answering that if he simply had to play his role as the heir to the cult, this would not have happened. But suddenly Wunvi cut him off at a glance, asking him to stop carrying nonsense, after which he asked who was standing behind it. The man asked what he was talking about, because it was a joint decision of the elders and deputy cult. Dialing his hands to the sides, the guy grinned and replied that he knew exactly that he would not have the courage to take such a step. Wunvi guessed that this was an order from the outside of their divine cult. He and the elders sold the cult to kill him, and even the master agreed. And angry with such a statement, Hajin began to release energy, asking loudly how he dares to blame him for that. Without wasting time, the man rushed forward, wanting to attack Winvi as quickly as possible to get him. Without dodging, the guy replied that, judging by his reaction, he was right, and mentally told the master that this is the price of trust in him. This damned idiot finally hit them in the back, but Wunvi did not even attempt to evade the attack. Having imprinted the guy in the wall, the man said that no matter how much he hated him, they still trained with one master. And he is still the current leader of the divine cult of the heavenly demon, so he will break his life with his own hands. Winvi asked why to continue this farce, if he had already planned everything, and because of the near mind, he became a puppet of external forces. Getting angry, Hajin asked how he dares to say this, after which he decided that he did not want to die calmly. After another blow, the man calmed down, asking him not to worry, because he would correct his mistakes and ensure the prosperity of the cult. At first, there was no reaction from Winvi, when suddenly he burst into a loud and crazy laugh, surprising those present. Everyone immediately tensed while he said that they had suffered him for so long, but still did not recognize his true power. And since they decided to kill him, they should have remembered one thing that could give them a huge advantage. Cleaning his throat tightly, Hajin said displeasedly that before his death his tongue became so restless, pulling the inevitable. But at the same moment his eyes widened when he noticed in the hands of the guy the sword of the demon dragon, which appeared from nowhere. Reaching for a sword, Hajin asked how he dares to create problems before his last moments. He did not want to let him crank his tricks, but it was too late, because he was illuminated by bright purple light. The man was thrown back, after which he asked when Wunvi managed to collect so much mystical energy. Smiling, the guy replied that he put all the mystical power into the sword, which contains the will of the first heavenly demon. He collected mystical energy while he was defending from their ridiculous attacks, and now he is ready to return everything accumulated to them. Suddenly, one of the men ordered the elders to engage in a protective formation, using their internal energy. However, Winvi said that it was too late, after which he waved his sword using the hellish flame burning souls. A wave of energy immediately burst from the weapon, which hooked all those present, forcing them to scream in pain. The explosion was so powerful that it went far beyond the building and was heard for several kilometers. Having fallen to his knees surrounded by the wind, Wunvi thought that no matter how miserable his life was, he did not expect such a death. He felt snow on his skin, remembering that everything was the same as on the day when the boys kicked him in childhood. When 3 people beat him, they said that they would spare him this time, calling him a bastard who sees the ghosts. One of the guys said that if he again says nonsense like he wears an evil spirit, he would not seem enough. Another boy said that he heard that he also had a destroyed nucleus, so he still claims that he sees ghosts. In his place, they would have committed suicide for a long time, but at the same time Winvi drew attention to the stone lying nearby. He simply told the truth, but in response he received only hatred. With these thoughts he grabbed a stone, wanting to fight back. To survive in such a disgusting world, he had no right to sit still, and therefore he decided to attack the offenders. When it ended, Winvi was breathing heavily, thinking that these people did not know when to give up, thereby bringing trouble to themselves. After that, he raised his head, noticing the lost souls in front of him. I asked them, as even they finally fall off. Suddenly, someone quietly approached him from behind and stated that he had special eyes, thereby surprising the boy. Winvi tried to understand when he managed to approach, because he did not even feel his presence, when he suddenly noticed expensive clothes. He also had a very expensive sword. Then he realized that he had run away quite far from human places, and he came specifically after him. Winvi awkwardly replied that the stranger was interested in his damned eyes, after which he allowed him to do what he would want. A man with snow, white hair asked if he could just pick them up, to which the boy replied that he could not refuse. He did not know if these eyes could be useful to him, when suddenly a man wrapped him in a cloak, saying that these eyes were not a curse. They are a blessing, and some people are born with a blessed upper energy core, or with a special soul. And such people have always done great deeds. These words were so sweet that they sounded like a lie, hinting at its potential. But moreover, Wunvi felt warm for the first time in his life, and then he heard the question whether he would follow his savior. Hearing the consent, the stranger asked his name, but in view of his absence, he decided to perpetuate at the time of their meeting and call him Winvi. Then the guy found the reason to continue to live, after that doing everything possible to help his master. Because of this damned body, his master was in a state of energy deviation, which prevented him from living. It would be too sorry to accept death here. His body is about to turn into dust so that he does not do. It will not survive. In this case, only one path remains. With these thoughts, he began to release the last energy from his body. It was a banned art of Zoroastrianism throughout the world. Rebirth through the pristine divine wheel. Forbidden arts used by practitioners to overcome death, moving his soul into the body of another person. Wunvi directed the remaining mystical energy to the fragments of the demon dragon sword to activate this art. Now he will leave his success to the will of heaven, after which he finally asked the master to survive until he returned. At that very moment, a bright ray of light descended on him directly from the sky, burning his body and transferring his soul to a new shell. Before awakening, Winvi heard voices while his whole body was numb and tingling after transfer. At that very moment his eyes widened when he asked himself if the rebirth through the pristine divine wheel managed. Suddenly a woman with a stick in her hand turned to him, asking if he hears her, and how long he was going to wallow on the floor. Rising to his feet, the guy was surprised that this body bears the same name as he, and the woman said that she suffered long enough. Without wasting time, she waved a stick, asking loudly how he dares to ignore her when they turned to him. Winvi grabbed her wrist with a deft movement, not allowing a piece of wood to hit him, thereby dumbfounding a woman. With a formidable look, an emaciated guy said that he was terribly stinking from her mouth, so she should turn her face in the other direction. Tearing out her hand, she angrily asked if he dared to reject her fair instructions, and even insulted. Going to the exit, she screamed loudly so that he did not even dare to dream of leaving until she realized his mistakes. Having crouched on the bed, Winvi realized that, judging by the remaining memory of this body, this woman is the stepmother of this child. Rebirth through the divine wheel works only on the bodies that have just died or is on the verge of death. He could not believe that this guy was beaten to half to death, and this Winvi could compete with his past life. This body is barely trained in very poor condition, but it has something that was not before, the lower energy core. Perhaps he will be able to develop the lower core and study all the necessary martial arts based on mystical arts. And also you need to develop the power of his eyes that can control the dead in order to return them to their original state. Winvi told himself that there is no if he is obliged to do this, because only then he could protect his master. Then he will show those who betrayed him, and contacted the heavenly demonic cult with whom exactly they contacted. Now he was in the Sichuan Tan clan. It was one of the 6 great clans of Murim, as well as the ruler of Sichuan Murim. To the west of it is Tibet, where the Palace is located, as well as Xinhai, the location of the Kunlun sect. In the south, there is a sect Jianzan, the temple of the heavenly dragon, and the sect of 5 poisons, and the front line of the central plains of Murim stretches to the north. They confront the heavenly cult of demons, and the vanguard of the troops of the Tan clan leads a squad of a storm consisting of strong warriors. The leader of the storm detachment, known as the Boar, Tan Hosan, was one of the strongest soldiers of the Tan clan. Together with the storm detachment, he founded the branch of the Tang clan, the division of 9 dragons, which is still valid to this day. The economic and strategic center Sichuan Murim, the county of 9 dragons, where the head of the clan entered the army of Hosan. Wunvi found out that Tan Hosan had 3 heirs. The mother of 2 of them was Namgun Sanjun, his legal wife. These were his first child, Tan Kujin, and his third child, Tan Yuochan, who also studied martial arts. But the mother of his second son is a maid, a mistake committed by drunk, and he was reborn as an illegitimate child. Let Wunvi and an illegitimate child, but he is still the son of the patriarch, so he is a candidate for inheritance, although the attitude towards him is terrible. The servants also look down at him, saying that the stepmother ordered not to deliver food to their pavilion. Now they will all starve. The man demanded to go and pray for forgiveness, so that the lady would have mercy, but immediately received a strong slap-in. Having flown away a few meters, the servant slowly rose to his feet, viciously saying that he was kindly given him advice. Then he added that if someone continues, he could no longer help him, when suddenly Wunvi approached him and waved his hand. The servant shouted that if he at least once touches him, then there would be problems, since he would report to the lady about everything. After a while, a beaten man said that his kindness would never forget, and would earnest to him and the second lady. With a crazy smile, Wunvi asked whether this is that he would bring what he needed. He replied that he would immediately prepare everything. Loose low, the servant loudly stated that he would return soon, after which he hastened to fulfill the order of the master. Wunvi could not believe that his hand was so trembling because of the beatings. He had not only a weak body, but there were no allies. This is partly due to the mockery of the mistress, but he will not advance at such a pace in the clan, if everything continues. All that he can is to accumulate internal energy and show his abilities, but there is a problem in the energy of this clan. He cannot use the methods of cultivation, but in the heavenly cult there were many those who came from the Tang clan. This will poorly affect the upper meridian, because this body is not prepared at all, which can have serious consequences. Remembering the room of energy in the innate strong upper meridian, he would transfer it to the illusory space. A suitable space would be a 1,000-year-old secret archive of the cult of a heavenly demon to fully show it. Fortunately, using the divine reincarnation, Wunvi did not lose most of his memories. In his position, the most suitable cultivation method will be the technique of a poisonous dragon with which he will begin. After the exile from the Tang clan, they became part of the cult. This method of cultivation allowed them to study the art of poison, instead of using demonic energy, and not practice the energy of poisons, as well as cultivation methods. While the Tang clan fights with a demonic cult, groups that use the poison in a special way appear in the fractions. If Wunvi uses demonic art through the method of a poisonous dragon, no one should suspect anything. The problem is that he will have to experience painful pain in order to obtain poison energy, as well as absorb high-level poison. He smiled, saying that now that he used the upper meridian, his dead eyes finally opened. Looking in front of him, The guy asked how long they were going to look like that, turning to several figures. He understands that he was quite attractive in a past life, but he was embarrassed if they continue to look so closely. Vunvi turned to the deputy Hajin and the elders who looked at him, full of malice and hatred. The man loudly asked how he dares to talk to him, the vice-head of the great cult of the heavenly demon, in this tone. Others, by displeasure, demanded that the heir to the worship be released, saying that he could not cope with their anger. These words caused Vunvi only a smile when he calmly replied that their reaction was directly pleasing to him. He was asked how he could be the same bad even after his death, not deciding to declare an uprising against him. Pulling the chain, Vunvi said that since they conspired and decided to kill him, they should be prepared for the consequences. The chain on the neck of Hajina made him fall in front of him, while the guy asked if he knew what he was capable of. Raising his head, the man saw the demon that he was called a ghostly king. It was the power that Vunvi possessed. At that very moment, the guy told Kadzin that if he remained in this state, he could not even reincarnate. Then the old man asked if he needed information because he had many knowledge, but suddenly he heard a negative answer. Extending his hand in front of him, the guy menacingly replied that he had enough people with this information. Vunvi released energy that began to transform the old man into a ball, depriving him of a human likeness. He stated that this is a ghostly sphere. It is filled with resentment of the dead and more powerful than most of the strongest poisons. As a friend, a guy threw her in his mouth, saying that this would become his lunch, hearing only the desperate cry of Hajin. The elders were dumbfounded, watching this picture, unable to believe that they just ate a man. At that very moment, Vunvi began to writhe, feeling an incredible pain all over the body, which torn him from the inside. After a couple of moments, the elders could not believe that he was able to stand after that, withstanding inhuman pain. Vunvi said that now the vice-head of the cult was a fertilizer for his poisonous dragon, and now it is time for them to make a choice. He invited them to obediently tell everything, in response to which he received only shocked glances and complete silence. After a while, the guy found out that the elders simply followed the orders of the organization known as the Association. The spirits of the elders immediately began to declare that they did not lie. They reported all the information so as not to be eaten. Vunvi reflected on the organization without a name, but the main threat comes exclusively from their participants. One of the elders stated that they really showed them very strange things, after which he asked to believe them. The cult of the heavenly demon is an unorthodox cult, worshipping its ruler as the only god. The elders of this cult, who honor the heavenly demon, conspired with them and decided to attack him, the heir to the cult. So, in comparison with the fear of a heavenly demon, the fear of this organization was stronger, which is very strange. Vunvi always believed that the orthodox or unorthodox fraction is controlled only by external forces. It was about the apostates, in people who surpassed all of humanity and trying to conquer the tower rising in heaven. These were extremely powerful demigods capable of breathtaking things. They are like natural disasters. This means that their leader is much more powerful than he represented, which means that it will be very difficult to resist. Vunvi will have to use the precious time, the absorption of so many poison, and gradual addiction to it. 2 months later, a plate crashed in the lady's room when she asked if he was sure that this Saraz did not get food. The servant replied that they would not dare to go against her will, but she asked why he lives, as if nothing had happened. He had to fall into her feet and pray for forgiveness in less than 3 days, suffering from unbearable hunger. Rumors are already walking throughout the estate that she killed him, and now she did not understand how to look into the eyes of the chapter. With a sigh, the woman decided to ask, before they continue, that this guy asked him to bring him. The servant replied that he wanted to get information about the current situation in Jianghu, about the unorthodox and demonic fractions. The lady was unhappy, thought that he was never interested in this, and over these 2 months he had changed too much. Suddenly, she suggested that someone was standing behind him, albeit useless, but he was still the son of Patriarch clan. If the boy makes a good impression during the visit of the Patriarch, he will be able to get a position in the clan. It is not surprising that so many annoying flies that pursue this goal are spinning around him, but this must be interfered. The woman screamed that Kugzin and Yochan should be wary. One cannot let this off, this damned Saraz. At that very moment, another servant announced that Mr. Yochan came to her. This means that he had already completed his training. The woman drove off the servant, adding that if he notices something strange in Vunvi, he must immediately report to her. A few seconds later, a guy entered the room. With a welcoming gesture, he asks her mother how she feels. Having received an answer, Yochan heard the question whether he had achieved his goal, answering that he had almost mastered the hidden weapon. Suddenly, he changed the subject, saying that he had heard about Sura, and was surprised that he did not repent even after what she had done. The lady replied that she had a headache from talking about him because she had no idea what this guy was planning. Yo-chan unexpectedly stated that someone was helping him. The woman raised her head in surprise, asking if he was thinking as well. The guy replied that he did not have enough internal energy, he did not eat or drank anything, and would not last 2 months. Someone could secretly bring him elixirs every night. The lady also thought about it, but does not know which fool helps him. Yo-chan said that this is why he should participate on the visit of the patriarch. Such a statement dumbfounded the woman. The guy explained that if he is playing a large scale, then his patron will also do something. The lady thought that the person standing behind him and claiming praise would certainly appear. Then they would grab them. However, if Suraz creates a problem, whether the patriarch will solve that they cannot even control him under control. Yo-chan replied that it does not matter, because if Wunvi creates a problem, he will simply stop him, like a loving brother. If someone really helps him, their strength is not enough to stop the whole clan that will stand in their way. Even if he tries to do something, he has only the strength of a person who studied the art of the clan's energy. However, these arts are available even to servants, so its strength cannot be so high as to surpass their level. Sometime later, the servant told Winvi that he heard that the demonic cult has been experiencing a civil war for 6 years. 2 months ago, he ordered Hanzamu to find out the latest events in Jianggu to find out how much time he had lost. The guy thought that a lot of time passed, due to rebirth through the divine wheel, but everything turned out to be much worse. These were 6 years of complete despair. And in addition to everything, the servant said that the heavenly demon was missing. It was evil, and a trick of a demonic cult. There was chaos because they did not know when the heavenly demon would return. Winvi thought that the master could be alive. At least there is a slight hope, because he cannot just disappear. Although he wants to immediately go to Tianshan, he has no strength, no information, no means to do it. Especially he lacked information, and therefore Winvi decided to spend time restoring the body and martial arts. It seems that traders use all methods to find the masters. Since they have not found it on accessible information, you need to look for further. Vunvi came up with a plan according to which the patriarch of the Tan clan will visit the clan of 9 dragons, the Dark Lord Tan Munhyuk. There are rumors that the Dark Lord will create a special security unit, and this hearing can be used. If Wunvi join the unit, then the spies network will be able to use, and his chances of finding the master will increase. The spirit of the elder, who took the image of a spider, told the guy that he is on the verge of mastering 12 strokes of a fierce tiger. This is transmitting the basic technique taught to wandering warriors. This art uses fists, palms, fingers, and legs. These parts of the body were like deadly weapons, but it is necessary to strengthen the body, bringing it to the limit through extreme training. This can be done using the technique of cultivating a poisonous dragon, taking spiritual elixirs purify blood and canals. After a while, the spider again brought him pills, adding that it could not help because safety is too strict. Winvi said that if he is useless, turn into a spiritual elixir, but the elder assured him in the opposite. Starting to eat tasteless pills, the guy decided to ask what else the news is, for example, where the Dark Lord. The spirit replied that he did not know when the Dark Lord will come, but said that Tan Yo-chan recently returned. The guy said that the visit of the Dark Lord was approaching, so his appearance is logical. But that was not all. Frowning, Spider added that he saw how he and his mother secretly met, discussing Winvi, deciding to conspire. The heir was surprised that Namgun Sanjun and Tan Yo-chan had a secret meeting. He was wondering what they were talking about. After listening to the story, he concluded that they will try to get rid of him during the visit of the Dark Lord. They also think that behind him is a secret patron. Apparently they are. Read the drama in his youth since they decided just that. He puzzled over how to get into a security unit, and they want to do all the dirty work for him. Nevertheless, he does not like the situation, yet they try to humiliate him when he suddenly knocked on the door to the Huns. Having invited him inside, Wunvi noticed a tray in his hands. The servant immediately explained that the lady asked to bring it for him. She said that he had already finished his thoughts, and as a reward for his suffering, she gave it in order to make up for his energy. The guy thought that this old witch was too predictable, but decided to play her game, asking to leave it here. The concern to the Hyons to guiltily stated that she wanted to see how he would drink it, so she had to do it right now. Winvi was sure that she mixed up the poison of insanity, but since he had already mastered the cultivation technique, he would not work. Drinking soup, the guy felt 100-year-old ginseng, mixed flowers, and a small amount of insanity poison. This elixir is so wonderful that only 1 dose will help restore energy and even strengthen it several times. But with such a large amount, the elixir will infect the brain with toxins, which is why an ordinary person would not have survived this. Smiling viciously, Winvi concluded that, as expected, there was poison here, which he wanted to slip so brazenly. The perfumes were immediately indignant, deciding that this woman from the clan Namgun went crazy because she dared to slip such a master. Winvi turned menacingly to them and asked to shut up, simultaneously ordering to follow this lady and find a sorcerer helping her. The guy ate her plan, drive him crazy with the poison of insanity, and then use magic to turn into a puppet. Then he turned to Hyansam, asking why he was still here. He replied that a master of martial arts was waiting for him outside. The servant added that he was sent a lady. This caused bewilderment on the face of Winvi, which did not understand the logic of her actions. On the street, he was greeted by Tangan, a martial arts master, appointed to train a young master. Winvi immediately recognized the warrior of a furious wind, who with a linear appearance offered him half, albeit not for long. He was the most valuable master of the storm detachment in battles, and one of the 5 strongest masters in the division of 9 dragons. Gon announced that he was asked to train the guy for 4 days before the visit of the head of the clan. He was too lazy to help with preparation. Be that as it may, this woman continues to amaze him, appointing Tangan himself a master of martial arts. She gave the impression that it was really to take care of her stepson, while wanting to capture his mind in order to humiliate him. Winvi was interested in what plan she should, and decided to ask Gona what he was going to teach him. The man lazily and without enthusiasm repeated that he was asked to train the guy for 4 days before the visit of the head of the clan. Winvi decided to get his questions, but Gon replied that he would not show twice, so he should look carefully. At the same second, several images of a man arose around the guy who used the technique of movement of the shadow. Returning to the starting position, Gon explained that it was a step of shadow. Winvi specified that it was Yu-chan who was using it. Having confirmed this, the man added that this is the basis of the art of step of shadow that the young master uses. Mentally insulting Sanyon, Winvi realized that she was going to exalt her son, comparing him with him in martial arts. Gon continued to explain that the step of the shadow is ideal for use with poisons or hidden weapons. He left traces on the ground so that the guy should just follow them. Even being a shadow, he left a pure mark. Suddenly, a man with a smile stated that he showed how to take a step of shadow, so he has nothing to do here, and he would go. However, Winvi interrupted him, stated that he learned everything, thereby making Gon freeze, asking for whether he heard everything correctly. Putting his hand on his side, the guy repeated that he had learned the step of the shadow, but the man did not believe him, and began to doubt. Gon said that the guy did not study martial arts, and the step of the shadow is rather complicated. Not to study it needs about 10 days. Even a genius like him took 5 days to truly understand the meaning of the form. It takes at least 3 months. Winvi took into account the time of studying the step of the shadow, and the man added that if he understood, he must continue. The guy repeated that he had learned him, but at the same time understood that this man refuses to believe. Closing his face with his hand, Gon said in displeasure that this is not that he could just see once and repeat. Not finding another way out, Winvi decided to argue with him on 30 silver coins, that he correctly mastered the step of the shadow. As far as he knows, his monthly salary is about 10 coins, and he must put at least 3 months of his work. Gon replied that the step of the shadow is the priceless martial art created in the spirit of the Tan clan. He wants to put on such a thing. Seeing that the man doubts that the guy grinned sarcastically, asked the master of martial arts whether he is afraid. He continued to provoke him, saying that the warrior of a violent wind himself said that he needed 5 days. Gon replied that he was able to hurt the ego well, after which he agreed to take his money as a fee for disrespect for martial arts. Winvi was glad that he agreed, after which he specified that now there was no return, hinting at a confident victory. Without wasting time, the man asked him to show him the step of the shadow, but he did not have time to agree on the guy was behind him. While Gon was trying to understand how he did it, Winvi shocked the stolen wallet, asking if he was going to drink today. The master could not believe that in addition to the demonstration, he managed to grab his coins, which seemed impossible. The dumbfounded Gon shouted that it was a deception, after which he asked with discontent when he managed to learn a step of shadow. Winvi replied that he had just learned him, because he never had the opportunity to study martial arts before. Without believing in what was happening, the man agreed with him, but asked how he could do this when he saw only once. Smiling, the guy asked if he did not believe in him, after which he suggested showing again to prove. Then he suggested that he did not have other techniques for training, otherwise this is some kind of boring, and at the end he called himself a genius. Now there were deserts only his pockets, but also confidence. But Gon asked him to wait here so that he would recoup. The man said that he knew many more complex secret arts. He is interested in how far he could go. Winvi told himself that he should be quite bewildered, not only because of his trick with the step of the shadow, but also because of the wallet. When he personally did not study martial arts, but in his life, as the heir to the cult, he met many famous masters. This allowed him to remember the shape of a heap of basic martial arts, and now it's time to use knowledge. Regardless of his talent, it would be impossible to steal a Gona wallet, which is currently much stronger than him. However, the whole secret was that the spirits helped him to steal a wallet, because for them, it was to swim. Now the time has come to empty the wallet of his new teacher, who seemed to hear what he said. 4 hours later, Unrea showed the techniques of the butterfly, with the following soul, the physical arts of the storm, and 12 rotations of the storm. The guide demonstrated his abilities without any problems, thereby depriving the master of blood money. One of the spirits said that he could be a heretic, but he is still a pity that his fate is to be connected with the heir to the cult. Unrea asked if they would continue, to which Gon replied that he could no longer borrow money from the bank. Smiling, the guy offered the last entry, but the man with tears in his eyes repeated that he was already on the shallows. The heir pointed with his hand to several wallets, offering to put everything way bank like real men. The trembling master decided to ask if he was going to sell him in slaves. Unrea replied that this was not entirely true. He has one important martial art that he cannot copy so easily, namely a dance of the storm. Such a statement unexpectedly angered a Rut, who immediately began to release his energy, thereby surprising the guy. The man said in a serious tone that he could close his eyes to other techniques, but the storm dance is the soul of a storm detachment. Putting a storm dance on a dispute is how to show a disrespect for a detachment, which is the basis of a division of 9 dragons. Unrea thought that he could touch a simpleton, but do not forget that he himself was a warrior of a violent wind. Gon said that he has the right to study this technique, because he already showed him both the first daughter and his third son. The guy replied that he did not talk about his rights. As an heir, he is interested in whether Gona admitted that he can learn him. Such a question sincerely surprised the master, who noticed that the guy also changed his behavior from malicious to serious. Suddenly, the guys loudly asked the warrior of a violent wind from the storm detachment whether he is strong enough, in his opinion, to become a storm. Having hit himself in the chest, he released energy, continuing to ask if he had the right to continue the mission of the storm detachment. Gon immediately remembered the mission of the storm. After that terrible defeat, the detachment fell into decay and practically broke up. However, he believed that they would be able to become a real storm again. 20 years have passed, and he buried the mission in his heart. And yet he did not think that he would hear these words from the young master Unrea, the weakest of the heirs of the Tan clan. The man said that his words excited his heart, but he had just offered a storm dance to a dispute, which is difficult to believe in. The guy pretended to have a heart hurt, after which he said that he first met him 4 hours ago. Then he asked he would have agreed if he was asked to teach the storm dance, so that it was possible to continue the storm mission. After all, he was going to escape after showing him 1 step of shadow once. Gon replied that he could not deny this. Then the man realized that he was specifically mocking him in order to force him to accept a dispute and recognize the power of the heir. He heard rumors that Unrea had changed, but he also sees that he was actually hiding in his constant ability and strength. The martial arts that he showed him includes the step of the shadow, an art that was difficult to fulfill with the body of Unrea 2 months ago. 2 months are not enough to accumulate sufficient internal energy, which means that he accumulated energy for a long time. In addition, he hid it from the lady, and only just the arrival of the Dark Lord, he decided to show his hidden claws. With a surprised look, Gon said that this was really an insidious plan, to deceive his family and take such a step. Unrea understands that this is considered a compliment in the Tan clan, but it is still strange to hear the like from the master. At that very moment, the spirit said that this man saw the real value of the heir, but this only annoyed the guy. Then he asked Gon if he would teach him, while the spirit said that no one could resist the words of the heir. This art is the reason why he made him swear so many fidelity, so it remains only to agree. The master looked at Unrea with surprise, who grabbed the spirits with anger, but he himself could not see them. The next second, Gona acquired a serious look when he stated that he would teach him the true storm. Folding his hands with a respectful gesture, the guy replied that Tan Wangvi from the clan Tan was asking for the teachings of his master, Tan Gon. Smiling slightly, the man answered him that a member of the storm detachment, a warrior of a violent wind, accepts the student's request. Then he got into the rack, saying that, unlike previous martial arts, the storm dance would be difficult to learn so quickly. When the master began to release energy, Unrea suggested changing the bet, thereby surprising the Rut, who thought that the dispute was over. The guy added that they would put on whether he could learn him until the end of the day. The loser will buy food and drinks to the winner. Gon asked if he seriously, after which he stated that he was dinner, because he would win this time. Continuing to release energy, the man asked the student to watch carefully, because it would be difficult to repeat it. Former members of the storm detachment promised not to intervene in the body regarding the inheritance of the head of the family. Therefore, even if Unrea continues the storm, the Rut will not be able to support him as the next heir. But for the rest, this will mean only one thing. A new storm will soon appear, which can join them in the way. Toward evening, the master looked completely drooping, and at the same time shocked, unable to realize what had happened. He doesn't care about the lost bet, because the greater the young Winvi master is, the better for them all. However, this damned guy did not share with him even one drink, continuing to eat a bunch of different dishes at his expense. When asked by the waiter whether he needs something else, the man asked for a bottle of alcohol because he cannot soberly look at it. Winvi said that if he was a drunkard, then they should go to the Dragon Tower, but Gon replied that it was very expensive. However, this bar is also quite expensive, the most popular restaurant in these places, with which the guy agreed. Gon was ready to take the score, even if it were a little expensive, but he did not know that Winvi would spend his weekly budget. A trip to such an expensive place as the Dragon Tower also did not fit into his plans, and therefore there is no need to think about it. Winvi thought that there should be many people here, after which he quietly put his hand under the table, releasing energy. He had to restrain himself for 2 months due to the ban that Sanjun imposed on him, but no more plans should be postponed. Spirits immediately recognized the spell of the connection of the revered demonic god Miphos, and were surprised that he would leave a mark in such a place. He mentally explained that he needed that their associates, who desperately, learn that he, the heir to the cult Young Wangui, is still alive. The spirit in the form of a spider sitting on a tree said that 10 days have already passed, as there were no suspicious meetings. He did not know how much he was still sitting when he suddenly noticed a girl in the form of a sect of Zinchen, not understanding what she was doing here. Why did he realize that this woman was the first daughter of the clan Kujin? Now she wants to meet with the daughter of the clan Namgun. He hoped that everything was in order with this child, after which he stated that he was not the time for worries, and rushed into the house. He needed to make a good impression on the young master and ask him to be more condescending. When the spirit turned out to be inside, he heard the woman asks if she was going to break the heart of her mother. Kugzin noted that this is not that compared to the pain she causes Winvi, having locked him in the room and forbidding to eat. The woman asked not to worry about him, because someone takes care of him secretly, and she needs to focus on the Dark Lord. Having slapped on the table, a girl with a formidable expression on her face asked, an excuse or this in order to treat him badly. She is sure that Sanyong did not even know about the existence of assistants before punishing him, and tried to kill him. Namgun asked with surprise why she was so angry because of some bastard, and whether she was really her daughter. Kugzin replied that she never forgets to call him illegitimate, so she decided to reveal the truth herself. The woman wanted to stop her, but the girl confidently headed for the exit, because she already told her everything. Sanjun told herself that she was always too soft from childhood, but it worsened as soon as she joined Zinchen. She did not understand how Kugzin was going to take her father's place if she continues to be so condescending. The spirit frowned, not knowing how to report it to him, because looking from the side, this family has a really full cavard. At that very moment, the woman loudly hit the table that this was all because of Winvi, and she does not need to wait for the visit of the Dark Lord. Sanjun called the servant, saying that she needed to leave, and the spirit tried to understand what she was going to do with a young master. Judging by her evil aura, one can guess that she is going to the sorcerer, with whom she had been in conspiracy for a long time. Meanwhile, Winvi thought that 10 days had already passed since he made his spirit follow her, but there was no news. There should have been connections through the revered demonic god Miphos, even in the district of 9 dragons. Either these people left, or they cannot act because of some restriction. In any case, the situation is clearly not good. At this time, Gon said that he was doing well with the weapon, to which he heard the question, he was still unhappy. The master replied that a man from the Tang clan teaches to use weapons, instead of hidden techniques and poisons, this is said. The guy explained that this technique of scattering colors is tango technique, which is why the movement is so fragmented. The man was surprised to ask if he noticed this, to which he received the self-propelled answer to Winvi that he was a capable student. Having gritted his face, Gon asked with irritation if he was such a good student. Why did not learn to be modest? Many sects and clans often have very complex movements and techniques so that they are not so easy to copy, all because they are trying to express the enlightenment of martial arts in physical form, by complication. However, the Tang clan is known for its hidden weapons and poisons. The similarity is that they both use tools. Because of this, the Tang clan system guarantees that the tool can be processed and used in other ways. Even if the technique of martial arts is different, although Tang guns are not spectacular, they are never worse than others. These are just the basis for the effective use of poisons and secretive weapons, but demonically, the sword is also divided into parts. If he learns the techniques of weapons of the Tan clan, this will help Winvi better master the 9 non-human demonic sword. But whether he can more effectively use a sword, which was only an unattainable dream in his past life, he is really a pity, but the study of poisons and other things will be much later. At this time, I noticed that he was planning something. Not hearing the answer, the man added that Miss Coogson returned, after which he asked if they were close. The guy knew that she was the only person of 9 dragons who treated Winvi as a family. A relative who deeply crashed into Winvi's memory is his sister who tried to treat him. The guy received many letters from her even after he received this body, but decided not to ignore this moment. Her letters were full of concerns and affection for him, and he hopes that Coogson would maintain a good relationship with him. However, he is going to become the enemy of Sanjun from this moment, but it arose of questions whether she would take his side when this will happen. Gon said that she was going to sit at first, so that the lady could only visit him tomorrow. With a sigh, Winvi agreed, but he did not think that everything would be so, because he tried to look a little further than the rut. He said that it was better for him to hurry until his sister came. He was surprised at the master that he wanted to start today. At that very moment, an insidious grin appeared on the guy's face when he said that he was not going to start, because he had already done it. Sometime later, Yo-chan asked the servant if he kept 10 days without failures, to which he received an affirmative answer. The guy praised him, after which he threw a small bag of money to him. The Hyonsum immediately thanked him. He wanted to leave, but the Yo-chan stopped him, after which he heard the question whether to get rid of him. He gave good. The first son thought that he took the poison 10 days ago, so that he should be completely poisoned, and would not have time to recover. Tangon makes a lot of effort to teach him, but even he needed 8 days to learn only the forms of a step of shadow. It doesn't matter how much he tries. Winvi barely learned the basic forms by the time of the visit of the Dark Lord. Now there was a problem in his sister. She quarreled with her mother because of this bastard as soon as she returned. Problems with the plan may arise when she turns 30. It will become the official heir to the division. But the sister is too soft to occupy such a role. She joined the Zinshin sect and did not study the martial arts of the Tan clan. This attitude can prevent her from correctly control the clan, in which there is no place for kindness and condescension. She cannot be the heir to the division of 9 dragons, so it will be fair if he takes this position. At that very moment, a servant entered him, announcing that a letter from the White Pavilion had come. The guy immediately let him in. The man was not sure that it was from the young master Winvi, and Yo-chan asked him not to hesitate and to give a letter. In a letter in a rather rude tone, Winvi urged Yo-chan to fight, not sparing the epithets for insults. The guy thought that this illegitimate bastard was completely crazy because of the poison, but perhaps it was a trap. A letter that can poison readers easily get Tan in the clan, because of which the Yo-chan immediately defeated the letter from his behalf. But the next second I realized that Winvi did not do that, and this is really just a challenge. The younger brother wanted to reassemble their awkward relationship through this duel and lower all the insults through it. Yo-chan thought that he needed to make a puppet out of him, so he asked to give the servants that he refused. 2 hours later, he was brought a new letter in which Winvi called him a coward, and Yo-chan thought he was in a hurry. He was sure that his brother would continue to send such letters, so you need to stop accepting them from the White Pavilion. However, the next morning, when Yo-chan went out into the yard, the word coward was written on the fence in huge letters. From this picture, the guy finally lost patience, asking one of the servants to immediately go to the White Pavilion. Then he screamed to say that tomorrow at noon in the second training room their duel would take place. The servant literally handed over the words of Yo-chan, while Wang Vi asked why he pulled for so long, accepting the proposal. The dumbfounded Gon immediately asked what he wrote to him. He was able to provoke, although he could only assume. The guy with an evil and grin asked in response to how he was going to become an heir if he has so little patience. Without waiting for an answer, he asked the master if he was going to stop him from this venture. Smiling, the man asked in response, why would he do it because it should be incredibly exciting. With a decisive look, Winvi said that in this case he would fight his brother and hit him to half to death. A little later, Coogson came to her brother, asking displeasedly what battle he agreed to and what all this means. Yo-chan also answered in displeasure that Winvi was the first to mock him, so she should deal with him. The girl was dumbfounded that Winvi first began this, which is why she rushed off with a White Pavilion, feeling ghostly energy. Now, being next to this place, she completely feels her, and some signs were marked on the walls and beams. Traces of the energy of death and the remnants of the poison are clearly visible, as if someone was tortured here for a very long time. It looks like a shelter of a madman, but she understood that this could be partly studying martial arts. Suddenly, her eyes widened when Coogson felt ghostly energy and mortal danger behind herself. The girl immediately pulled the sword from the scabbard, after which she turned sharply, aiming with a weapon right in the neck. Winvi stopped the sword near his neck, completely not straining, looking at his sister with a displeased look. For a few seconds there was silence while the girl tried to realize that this danger came from her brother. Looking menacingly at the girl, The guy said that this was a rather cruel greeting that he had not expected from her. Kugzin apologized, explaining that she was about to become, but did not expect that he would try to block her blow. She attacked him when he used the technique of a poisonous dragon, so he reacted late. If she reports his level of poison and combat abilities to his plan to end, but if Sanyon sent her to explore about him. But the girl smiled that she was worried about him because of her mother. But now she was relieved that everything was in order with him. She looked at him like his master, the only one who cared for him, after which he did not seem to be that her stepmother sent her. I ignored this statement. Kuzin pointed out the energy emanating from him, asking if he was drawn into dark affairs. Having extended his hand and released energy, Winvi asked if she had in mind the art of poisons with which he studied. Having coughed, the girl replied that it was ghostly energy and poisons, and did not understand how he combined them. The guy said that this was a damned poison. In fact, he only combined mystical energy with poison, so that it looked like that. It will be difficult to hide the energy of his death from human eyes, so you need to pass it to another so as not to fall under suspicion. When asked why he had the art of damned poison, Winvi replied that this is the only poison that he could use. He succeeds without the help of a family, but it seems that she will not believe it, judging by her suspicious look. Then the guy asked, unnaturally neglecting morality for a member of the Tang clan to achieve greater power. He again released energy, said that if this is a problem for her, she could try to stop him on her own. Kugzin was dumbfounded by his brother's statement, and the one he radiated because earlier it was a completely different person. The girl bowed. I said that he had changed a lot, and Winvi thought that he could not allow her to continue to protect him. It was convenient only to the old Winvi. Even if the relationship suffers, he needs to establish a clear line. Having covered his mouth with his hand, Kuzin said that now everything has changed, and it is clear why Mom and Vat were worried about him. Suddenly she smiled madly, adding that his words awakened extremely strong thirst in battle. At that very moment, the guy's eyes widened when he felt the energy emanating from the girl and the desire to kill. Kugzin blushed and laughed. Her hands trembled when she said that he really surpassed all her expectations. As far as he understands, this energy is a stream of the soul, the seed of the destroyers of the barriers, which carries only death. In the midst of them, most likely, a heavenly ghostly stream, and you need to be very careful entering the battle with it. For some time he doubted why Tan Kugzin was the first in line for the inheritance of the dragons, to become a participant in the Chinzan sect. The mental jets that endow the owner with talent are considered one of the conditions for the formation of the destroyer of the barriers. But as the name implies, the mental streams are rooted in the soul itself, so they develop along with the carrier. As is appropriate to the traditional method of Chinzan, which gives priority to training of the heart and requiring constant battles. In combination with the teachings of the Tan clan, who preached everything for the sake of victory, this made her an uncontrollable killer. Winvi said that before discussing his energy, she would tell about her, because she had a rather alarming. Having folded the sword in the scabbard, Kuzin quickly apologized, adding that she had forgotten why she originally came here. On her part, it was rude to direct a sword at him and interrupt his training, so she sincerely asks for forgiveness. Winvi thought that she was able to calm down the desire of blood caused by a heavenly ghost stream with such ease. Shinshin training makes itself felt, but Kugzin in itself is quite strong, so you need to be on your guard. After a while, the guy offered her tea, and the girl replied that she often drinks tea in Shinshin, but never tried so tasty. Winvi replied that this one was brought from the mountain of heaven. The sister replied that she did not think that he was a connoisseur in such. Suddenly, the girl remembered that she had brought something, after which she pulled out somewhat tanhul from Meishan. She asked if he loved them. At that time, Winvi was surprised to examine the treat, and could not say that he loved directly. Rather, he should thank her instead of the past Winvi, so he said that they are really tasty. Hearing the answer, Kugzin literally shone, answering that she was very glad that she could please her beloved brother. The guy could not get used to it. It is difficult for him to believe that she is a man who exuded a little earlier a desire to kill. But he decided to ask what brought her here, and he will not like it if she was here to prevent him from tomorrow's battle. Having lowered her head, and she replied that it was partly so, but she came to apologize, because she knows how Mom and Vat acted with him. Winvi frowned and asked if she thought that instead of their apology, he would accept her and simply forgive them. Kugzin knew this, but still wanted to apologize, to which his brother replied that he was going to fight him anyway. The girl said that she was worried that he was pushed to do so, but now she sees that this is actually part of his plan. Then she asked if he was sure of this, even though he was quite strong now. But the vat is far from a mistake, and maybe he would think something. Winvi thought that she was aware of their evil intentions, but did not know the details, and then replied that he also had an ace in his sleeve. Since he has also slipped from madness, They think that the activation of their witchcraft, as planned, will break it. Kugzin said, worried that even if he wins, we must not forget about their influence in the house that could follow. Squeezing her hand, her sister added that if Chan loses, his mother will do everything possible so that no one would know about it. Winvi smiled and stated that she was too worried, after which he offered to come to the second platform tomorrow. A day later, a bunch of people gathered at the second training site, and sellers loudly advertised their goods. The bookmakers also did not lag behind, and the audience put the money to win the second master, calmly giving their bloody. Everyone put a different amount of money, but absolutely everyone was sure of Yuo-chan's victory, hoping for light money. Kugzin, who just came up and saw this picture, stated dumbfounded that this was what Wunvi was counting on. The guy quite said that she will definitely have problems with opening this news. Moreover, their dear brother is clearly nervous. With an evil grin, he added that this is why he arranged an arena where Yuo-chan could have fun. The Gon, who observed from the balcony, noticed a lot of people. At the same second, he was addressed by a member of the detachment of the Wind of Justice. Tay said that Winvi worked on it. The man did not expect Tay and Zin would also want to look at this battle. Tay replied that they were here at work. A huge crowd gathered to look at the battle, and they are here to follow the order. Smiling, Gona-A asked how he thinks, who would become the winner, because he himself knew that the answer was not so clear. Tay replied that it was obvious, although he coached a young master, but only 10 days, so the Yuo-chan would win. The master said that everyone here thinks the same way, but it was Mr. Wang Wei that was the initiator of this duel. Then he smiled again, asking if he was curious why he did this if he knew that there was no chance of victory. Meanwhile, the Hyeonsum told Yuo-chan that Wunvi had distributed news about a duel and even opened the doors so that everyone would watch. This was angry with a guy who replied that he would just teach him a lesson, and all the lols in the city came to see it. At that very moment, Wunvi loudly asked him what was so upset, and whether he was worried because he lost his mother. Smiling, the guy asked why he would not go to look for his mother so as not to worry so much. Getting angry, Yuo-chan replied that his mouth was as dirty as his mother, and asked to shut up, because he did not want to become infected. Wunvi began to mimic him, adding that his son's mother should only listen to praise, thereby provoking. Unable to stand it, the eldest son loudly insulted him, after which he was blown up from his place and rushed into the arena. After that, he began to call for Wunvi. I declare that he would bury his lousy mouth so that he would silent forever. At that very moment, people were surprised that Tan Yuo-chan came first, because they thought that Wang Wei was the initiator of the battle. Rising up, Wunvi said that his brother is so easy to get out of himself. Everything goes in his favor with such ease. Standing in front of his brother, the guy said that he came here to get the title. He wishes him a successful battle for him. Smiling viciously, Yuo-chan asked if he was trying to show respect, deciding that he was scared as soon as he stepped into the arena. Kugzin guessed that Wunvi had pushed him out of his own technique of private whisper, but he needed to keep it in himself. She noticed that people say that Mr. Wunvi is watching his manners, but Mr. Yuo-chan behaves ignorantly. Kugzin thought that his behavior would give the impression that he had accepted an invitation to a duel, and not vice versa. In any case, what is really important is the outcome of the battle. Wunvi looks confident, but the Yuo-chan is the rising star of the house. The eldest son said that he was sure that these insults are all that he was capable of, and Wunvi asked if he had come here to talk. Yuo-chan could not stand it, and suggested starting, adding that he did not know what kind of dirty trick he prepared for this fight. Then he added that he could not hope for victory, when he suddenly threw a smoke saber to the ground, giving the beginning of the battle. The audience was immediately surprised at the smoke curtain, after which they began to complain that nothing was visible, losing interest. Wunvi did not expect this, although the use of hidden weapons without any cover would not make sense. But he does not recklessly attack him, and even considers him weaker, because he did not hesitate to attack from behind. He did not expect smaller from the clan, so he used the step of the shadow cover, which could surprise Yuo-chan. Coming to him behind him, Wunvi asked if he had really forgotten that Gon taught his step of the shadow cover, thereby surprising the enemy. Yuo-chan brushed his hand, but missed the target, which was very pleased with the guy for whom everything turned out successfully. The eldest son with the sky asked if he studied this. He was still the son of his father, albeit from another mother. However, the step of the shadow cover is just a skillful movement of the legs that create the shadow cover of Qi. Therefore, Yuo-chan tensed, deciding to show him the true shadow cover, after which he began to move incredibly quickly. Wunvi thought that a technique that does not allow the enemy to hear and see you, real dissolution in the shade. It is now clear why it is called a genius, and it will be difficult to track it in this smoke, but sooner or later it will seem. At the same moment, Yuo-chan went out, intending to attack Wunvi, who was ready for such an outcome. The eldest son did not like that his brother was evading, so he again decided to attack him from the back. He began to mercilessly attack him, but all the attacks passed by, which was even more angry with him, forcing him to attack. Winvi thought that, unfortunately, his skill in the shadow cover was not high enough to hide from his eyes of the dead man. In addition, bloodthirstiness oozes from him, so he would have tracked him calmly without the eye of the dead man. Gon, looking at this, did not think that he was already so good in a step of the shadow cover. Tay replied that he had noticed the same thing. But still, this is more reminiscent of the game in the seals. Perhaps Winvi simply avoids it so until the smoke dissipates. But even if the smoke dissipates, it was all in vain if the younger gentleman could not strike a good blow. Gon, with a smile, replied that he taught him one movement for such a case, making more than Madame asked. Then he asked if they think that he was so terrible, but the comrades said that he was the best in this world. Meanwhile, Yo-chan continued to attack, simultaneously insulting his brother and saying that he was running away like a rat. The smoke will dissipate now, so you need to put an end to this. He was going to take pity on him and only break his legs. However, he himself is to blame, because all this time he only avoided his attacks, using the step of the shadow cover, without attacking in response. At that very moment, Winvi surrounded several clones of his brother who thought that he could not avoid this attack. The next second, the eldest son released a downpour from the needles of a flowering pear, which seemed to rain the guy. Kugzin, taking out the sword, immediately recognized her brother's skill, thinking dumbly that Yo-chan wanted to kill Winvi. Having discarded the needles from himself, the youngest son smiled, said that he would have played a little more with him, but the time to finish this battle. Another charge of needles flew in Winvi, but it easily reflected them with a stream of wind created around him. Spectators enthusiastically watched the wind, which surrounded Winvi, not imagining where he suddenly came from. Kugzin realized that this technique, which Winvi studied yesterday, even she could not see it properly. With a surprised look, she finally understood what a military equipment her brother coached. It was a storm dance. Yo-chan shouted that this was impossible. He learned the dancing of a storm, something that neither he, nor his family could learn. Winvi smiled and replied that fortunately, some had given him an excellent teacher, hinting at his own mother. Then the guy stated that he should thank him, after which he rushed into the attack, thereby surprising his brother. Chan was surprised at the incredible speed, which is why he could not react in time, observing what was happening. Meanwhile, Winvi used the storm dance, after which he hit his brother directly into the stomach, knocking him down with a full blow of the storm. The eldest son felt an incredible pain that could not oppose anything, because of which his victory was at risk. The blow was so strong that he flew out of the ring. The audience was surprised that Yo-chan lost to Winvi in one blow. The herald immediately stated that this was an unpredictable outcome that no one could foresee before the start of the battle. Tay asked how Winvi used the storm dance. Gon replied that he had everything he needed. The man said that this is not some trifle from whom he could brush up, to which the master replied that he was right. Then he smiled, asking what the guys think. His wind differs from the one that they once served. At that very moment, the question was heard whether he wanted to say that Winvi has the same talent as the head of the clan. Gon replied that it was said early, but learned to create a storm in 10 days, so it is worth tracing it. Perhaps these are just words, but he said that to take care of the storm detachment, so he began to lay hopes. Suddenly, the man noticed that the guy continues to create the wind, trying to understand what he was still planning. At that very moment, the youngest son went to his sister, with a smile asked if she would fight with her brother. Kugzin looked at him dumbfounded, not expecting a similar proposal to her so suddenly. The audience immediately recognized the heiress of the family of 9 dragons in the girl, who was also the sister of the young master. In shock, examining the crowd, she heard people said that she returned from Zinshan to meet with the Dark Lord. So many years have passed, so they did not recognize her, and now her brother, who studied the storm dance, decided to challenge her. It was interesting for them to see how the strongest newlywed Sichuan, Kugzin, with his brother would fight. People screamed that this battle would be more interesting than the battle of Winvi and Yo-chan, deciding to disrupt the jackpot today. Now they had every chance to see Mrs. Kugzin's skills, so they began to scream her name, encouraging her. Zin noticed that the situation was getting out of control, and Tay asked Gon if Winvi had any chances. The master replied that the guy should not meet Miss Kugzin face to face, but he was interested in what he was up to. Having defeated Yo-chan, this would already provide him with a position in the family. But if Kugzin wins, he can apply for the heir. And the lady apparently also understands that this is a bad idea. At that time, the girl mentally asked her brother what he was planning. If they were alone with him, she would not have to worry about the reputation, but now the refusal would disgrace their surname. Her voice with a laugh asked what she was worried about, because he begs himself, and her heart requires a battle. Yaro's voice demanded to trust his desires, but Kugzin tried to force himself to disagree with this. Now she needs to worry about the position of Winvi and their family and apologies for him for such an attitude. Looking at the girl's strange behavior, the youngest son asked if something was bothering her, distracting her from thoughts. Without waiting for an answer, he asked with a smile whether she was too worried about the battle, not even leading to death. He invited her to simply enjoy, to which Kugzin replied that she barely restrained her, after which she jumped into the arena. People screamed with enthusiasm that she nevertheless accepted his invitation, and now they were awaiting an incredible sight. The girl introduced herself, saying that she, the heiress of the 9 dragons of the Sichuan Tan clan and the swordsman of the Xinchen sect. It was coached by the master of the blade, Wu Ho, and she specializes in the lonely technique in the world and the blade cutting the zipper. Her peers from Jianghu granted her the title of Beauty of Thousands of Petals, and now she hopes for a good battle. Wunvi replied that he was the second successor of the family of 9 dragons. His teacher is the strongest knight of the wind, Tan Gon. Today he asks her mentoring, and since the call was accepted, the audience began to cheer them up with delight. The guy noticed that the sister liked it, looking at her wide smile, which appeared recently. Kugzin replied with madness in her eyes that she was not so excited for a very long time, and her brother awakened it in her. Winvi said that he was also inspired a little, and the girl grabbed the sword, saying that her brother wanted to fight with her sister. Releasing the energy around him, a smiling guy asked if she was ready, hoping to start quickly. Kugzin immediately gave the go, ahead, after which the first one rushed to the attack, hoping to defeat her brother as soon as possible. Wunvi decided to ask, unless the beginners are given the advantage of 3 blows, after which he used a storm dance. When they approached each other, Kugzin said that this was the seal of the blades of the early wind that day stopped her sword. Rubbing the distance, she asked if it was that she could wave her sword as much as she wanted, without consequences. Then she added that he himself told her to enjoy the battle, so there can be no talk of any advantage. Wunvi was surprised at her incredible speed, after which he decided to use the art of the shadow cover, the body drift. Kugzin was surprised that he even knew Chan's skills, adding that her brother really surpassed all expectations. Suddenly she stated that he was still not too much in this, after which a blow to where the real Winvi stood. The guy smiled and asked, was the art of owning Qinsen's sword so much that it didn't look like it at all? Kugzin replied that it was not it. He decided to hide the energy that she saw yesterday, so she also has its secrets. At first Winvi frowned, after which he smiled because it was a clear invitation to show all his strength. He began to produce a huge amount of energy that he should show her, the technique of a poisonous dragon. When the sister saw the release of the ghostly dragon, a smile appeared on her face, and a feeling of excitement. Having decided to attack the first, she stated that this is the very poisonous aura, and that ghostly energy that she met earlier. Getting into the combat rack, and grabbing the sword tightly, the girl added that it was with this that she wants to fight now. Her aura has changed to impossibility. All the killing energy emanating from a ghostly blow merged with her sword. There was a strange feeling that he was looking at the demon who put on the robe of the beautiful angel. Be that as it may, if he is offered the first blow, why not agree, 1 blow, and he will take control of the battle. A mistake. He heard his sister said that his storm, with the help of which he defeated Chan, is now much stronger. The guy barely managed to dodge his sister's sword, who said with a smile that it was too obvious. She began to swing the sword, trying to get her brother, saying that the storm of dance movement is too wide. The girl said that when he encounters someone stronger than him, you need to be careful not to make a mistake. Winvi thought that the speed of storm dancing, mixed with short and exact secret arts, creates murderous equipment. But it works only against equal opponents. It will be risky against a stronger enemy. Then he uses a technique suitable for repeated attacks, 12 blows of a furious tiger. Wunvi decided to connect her with the dance of the storm. But the girl recognized this technique, surprised that he also learned it. Wunvi can use an impulse to accelerate the rotation used in 12 strikes by a furious tiger. However, he still could not get Kugzin. No matter how hard he tried to overtake her, he had to be faster. With each new blow, he tried to accelerate, releasing more and more energy, but without losing self-control. Kugzin realized that he was trying to maintain the flow of his attacks, but giving the enemy a distance, it was worth expecting a counterattack. At that very moment, she used the Xinchen sword, a lightning-fast blade, starting to attack her brother. Defending himself from the blows of the sword, Wunvi realized that he had hastened too much with the attack, but now it was too late to retreat. Suddenly he noticed that this was his chance to break through, and Kugzin noticed that there was something wrong in his movements. Understanding what her brother had planned, the girl said that this was exactly what was making the battle of standing and bringing pleasure. Kugzin asked to entertain her again, while one of the spectators turned around, deciding to distract from the battle for a long time. He heard Yo-chan's question what was happening, to which he asked if he came to his senses, and whether everything was in order with him. The eldest son, in shock, realized that Winvi not only cut him out, but also fights now on equal terms with his sister. He asked if his mother was still returning, to which he heard a negative answer, and thought that Kugzin would definitely not lose. But the longer this is delayed, the higher the position of the Wunvi will rise, especially when the audience chants his name. This is impossible, but if his sister really loses, it will be the end, but he cannot allow it. Meanwhile, Winvi, who reflected the next sister's blow, noticed that he created a gap through which you could break through. Now it was necessary to continue the offensive. At that very moment, he received a gift with a knee in his chin. The guy was surprised by blows without weapons, because their flow differs from the style of Xinchen, which did not allow Kudzen to read. The girl explained that he teaches Xinchen technology now, but 5 years ago she studied the art of the Tan clan. Wunvi noticed the straightforward sword of Xinchen and the method of 100 blows of the Tan clan, aimed at opening the vulnerability of the enemy. These two opposite martial arts are perfectly merged and are used in the attack. This is the strength of the ghostly blow of Azul. Suddenly, Kugzin used the step of the shadow and went to her brother behind her, waved her sword, and aiming at his neck, but he dodged. Tearing the distance, the guy felt the taste of bile, and with every blow of his heart, his body is more and more numb. Now he realized what it was to fight, using martial arts that had never used to be used. Suddenly, Kugzin said in surprise that he was really different, and Wunvi asked what happened. The girl explained that his attacks are not like other newcomers she found out during the battle. It was all about reading the enemy and evading. He is like an experienced warrior who fought in hundreds of battles. Wunvi understood the base of movements, but in a past life he did not have combat energy, and therefore chose another tactic for himself. Reading the enemy and the prediction of his actions, it was his main style of the battle that developed on the desire to survive. After all, there were masters of martial arts against him who could kill by click, but now he has forgotten one important thing. When he uses mystical arts, he does not use them strictly, as in a book, and martial arts are no exception. Suddenly, Kudzen asked why he was skying, deciding that he had planned something, and therefore was the first to rush into the attack. Reducing the distance, the girl became interested in that her dear brother will do now that she knows his secret. She began the collapse, and so, but not aiming in life-important organs, and the principle of the strike of Azul is to stretch the battle. In combination with her anxiety about him, this led to the manifestation of weakness, which he immediately decided to use. He is grateful for his sister's good intention, but he has no reason not to use it against her, and therefore he began to counterattack. Surprised, Kudzen said that this was not bad, but he repeated herself in her movements, when she suddenly noticed something strange. The wind, rejected by this blow, circulates in front of Winvi, limiting its movements. He learned to use the height of the storm. When the guy waved, the girl immediately realized that it was dangerous, but it was too late for the dot. At the same second, a strong wind began to develop from the center of the arena, which dumbfounded all the spectators. All those present, including the Rut with the company and the Yuochan, opened their mouths from what had just happened. When the wind was subsided, first of all, everyone noticed Winvi, which he stood as if nothing had happened without even looking at his sister. Tay and Zin stood inquiring views on the Rut, which he did not understand what was obliged to such close attention. Tay asked if Mrs. Kugzin would be all right. Zin shared his anxiety, looking carefully at the arena. The master thought that they were all so surprised not only because Wangwi was much stronger than they expected, but even because of a glimpse of the light, which was now, meanwhile, Winvi asked his sister, "Is it true?" Kugzin asked if he had seen this, because she wanted to hide him before his trump card is in charge, but she did not work out. Then a wide smile appeared on her face when she stated that since he noticed, it would not be possible to hide. Noticing the release of chi swords, the audience enthusiastically began to shout that Miss Kuzin moved to an early peak. Seeing this, Yuochan smiled, praising his sister, and adding that her brother always believed in her because she was the heiress of 9 dragons. Looking at Winvi, the eldest son thought that now this bastard had no chance of victory. Kugzin said that he already realized that since she began to use key swords, he could not allow the battle to drag on. Wunvi replied that he knows this. The delay in the battle with someone who is weaker will be considered extremely ignorant. She was sorry, because she wanted to enjoy both even more and see that he was hiding. But the battle would end in the next moments. His early seal of the Sword of Wind, which was blocked by her blade, still cannot block the Xinchen sword entwined key. Since he cannot use his mystical arts, he has only one possible option. Looking at his thoughts, the girl with a smile realized that he came up with something, but Wunvi did not answer directly. However, the sister did not give up, saying that she feels it, and hears his heart beats incredibly quickly. The brother replied that he was a little excited, after which he added that at the moment he was obsessed with martial arts. Kugzin said that only crazy martial arts can call themselves real fighters. Winvi immediately realized the meaning of her words, saying that he was still a fighter who should literally live in martial arts. After the rebirth, he was too focused on mastering martial arts faster, but did not take into account one. The life of a fighter who was envied by the past Wunvi is not like that, and even the emotions that he experienced when fighting his sister. He did not understand how he could express everything that he still studied, and how well the martial arts act on his enemy. Excitement and fighting spirit, which is why he wanted to become a fighter in order to feel all this in his own skin. From his thoughts, Kugzin's voice distracted him, asking whether it was possible to continue, because judging by his breath, he is normal. Hearing approval, the girl immediately grabbed the sword and jumped forward, swinging them towards Wunvi. As expected, Kugzin aims to finish everything with one blow, but the guy could not let the battle end so much. So he will have to use his most powerful attack in the form of a storm dance, combining spectral energy with him. Clutching two streams of energy, he held out his hands, using a thunderous wind, a cannon shot, meeting Kujin's sword. Wunvi was surprised that this was not enough to fight the martial artist at the early peak level. Suddenly, he tried to force himself not to think about all nonsense, convincing himself that either his plan would work or not. The shockwave was so strong that it created a veil of dust, from which Yuo-chan had to cover his face. He is disappointed that the gap between him and his sister increased. This bastard will not be able to stand after such a blow. But when the dust was dispelled, he stunnedly remarked that Wunvi was standing on his feet, blocking his sister's sword. He was waiting for this moment, the very second during which Kujin left Qi, depriving her of strength. It was a moment that he turned into an ordinary sword, and therefore he used this moment to strike. When this happened, Winvi's hand trembled, and he with concern felt that he could not move it. Usually you can win by just breaking the swordsman weapon, but it was clearly not the end, and Kugzin is not going to give up. The winner of the ghostly stream of Azul will never stop due to such nonsense. This, on the contrary, will inspire it. Of course, this concerned him, so the guy turned and soared into the air, intending to continue the difficult battle. He decided to put the rest of his remaining energy into this one blow, using a thunderous wind, a cannon shot. Looking at her brother, Kujin enthusiastically stated that he was really the best, because she was able to give her an unforgettable impressions. At that very moment, the girl jumped, using the blow of the rising dragon, a waterfall rolling on the rising sun. Gon and his comrades in shock noticed that they were too carried away, and now they would get serious injuries. But at the same moment they stared dumbfounded at the arena, because at the time of their skirmish, the third figure suddenly appeared. Having accepted their blows on himself, the man suggested that the two had already played enough, and therefore the time came to stop it. When everyone returned to the ground, he asked if they were going to meet the head of the clan in a hospital bed. Without wasting time, Kugzin immediately folded her hands in a respectful gesture, greeting the head of 9 dragons. Wunvi, that this man is his father, Hosan, and therefore hastened to follow the example of his sister and greet him. Spirits asked him to be careful. They thought that after the decline of the storm, he stopped improving, but became even stronger. Wunvi understood this, and even if this organization is strong, they were still a small special detachment of the Tan clan. He thought that the commander of the detachment would be about as much as the elder in the heavenly demonic sect. But this person is so strong that Wunvi cannot even guarantee a victory over him in his past life. Suddenly, Hosan asked if he was dissatisfied with something, whether there was something that he wants to tell him. The guy realized that he was staring too much, after which he answered that he was wondering what he was doing here. Kugzin was dumbfounded by his behavior, and the man asked if there was a place in 9 dragons where he could not enter. Wunvi replied that he was simply worried that, having seen him such a weak possession of martial arts, he could be offended. These words were heard by all those present, dumbfounding their mouths dumbfounded, understanding how the youngest son behaves impudently. He felt how everyone was shocked. Even his sister was too stunned and asked him to stop. He believes that this is a very reasonable reaction to such an answer to the chapter, especially from an illegal child, who is essentially dust. But after he saw the residual memoirs of the past Wunvi, he realized that the Hosan, this man with a capital letter. Turning around, the man said that he was right. He did not feel anything, watching his fight. Then he added that he heard that the guy had changed a bit, and it turned out to be even better than he was counting. Then his gaze moved to Yuo-chan when he stated that he was also disappointed with some others. The eldest son was suppressed when he heard these words, after which Hosan called for a Rut, Jin and Tae, who immediately appeared. The head said that they reacted too slowly, so they should continue to work on themselves. After that, the man decided to leave the arena, asking his subordinates to disperse and take care of the rest. When he left, Wunvi turned to his sister, calmly asking why she looked so crushed because nothing happened. The The worried girl replied that it seems to her that they were not good enough to get her father's recognition. Then she asked him the same question, and after several seconds of thoughts, Wunvi replied that he was like that. But the father suddenly began to be interested in a child, whom he ignored all the time, which means that Wunvi managed to declare himself. At the same time, he easily turned away from his son, who did not live up to his expectations, thereby destroying his reputation. Kugzin apologized, deciding that I should not ask about it, but my brother carefully asked if she was hungry. Smiling amiably, the guy invited her to drink a glass, since they finished finding out his relationship. Some time later, pleased Kugzin raised his glass, screaming that this was a real life that she likes. Wunvi replied that she seemed to starve for several days, after which he asked if they were fed in Zinchen. The girl replied that they were fed a lot, only with vegetables, that she was not very happy, and her brother could approximately appreciate her suffering. Starting knocking on the table, the sister said loudly that she was growing now, and therefore should eat meat and drink what she wanted. She added that this is exactly what she did not like in the Taoists. Wunvi replied that she understood everything, offering another glass. Filling her glass, Wunvi decided to ask what kind of person, her older brother in training, which she always talks about. Kugzin blushed, asking why he suddenly asked. The guy replied that she mentioned him several times in a letter. After that, he began to mimic her, remembering how she praised her older brother, and the girl asked to stop. And she did not mention that he was going on a visit to the chapter. Now he needs to learn more about him, because he would have to meet him. Li Cholson, a student of the Zinchen sect, comes for caution, and even during the visit of the Dark Lord. There are rumors that the Dark Lord is trying to create another special detachment, like a storm, but even stronger. If this is true, all sects and clans in Sichuan try to do something about it. The same applies to Zinchen. They probably sent him here because they can blindly trust Kugzin, although she herself did not understand this. Or maybe this is something more important than they think. But now there is no point in building guesses. At that very moment, the guy waved his hand, and his sister asked whether he was a friend whom he was going to invite. Kugzin was dumbfounded by seeing a rut, who said that she should be softer in the training room. Then he added that he was surprised that she was able to show the aura of the sword. The girl bowed and thanked him. With a nervous look, Kugzin asked his brother why he did not say that the rut would come. He replied that she did not ask. With an awkward movement, she pushed back the chair, offering her uncle to sit down. He thanked her with surprise. Smiling, the man noticed that they clearly ordered a bunch of food, thanks if it would be all at his expense. Wunvi replied that it would be necessary to try the question, to which he had a question whether he hit his head, and Kugzin looked at them in shock. Dissatisfied with the behavior of his brother, the girl immediately asked him why he was so informal with his master. Without waiting for an answer, she asked if he knew what kind of person it was, explaining that he was actually a father of his father. The uncle saved him from danger during the Chingan bloodbath, and even received an honorary title from the head of the clan. Hearing this information, the guy hastened to turn to a racing that was surprised at a sudden formal appeal. Having bowed, Wunvi said that he did not know about his relationship with his father, and was very impolite for him. The guy apologized loudly, and asked to forgive him, while Kugzin nodded and said that he was doing everything right. The girl with satisfaction stated that he would understand if Wunvi apologizes as expected, but these words made Gon grimace. The man turned to the girl, screaming that they had been killed by his appetite, and asked if she forced him to do it. Returning to the place, the guy with a smile asked what he was thinking about the old detachment of the storm, a detachment of a righteous wind. Gon asked the answer how he thinks what assessment he gave them. Wunvi answered with confidence that 10. A smile immediately disappeared from his face, when he stated that it was not at all interesting when everything was so obvious. The youngest son decided to ask if he was right, to which he received an affirmative answer, although he knew this anyway. Wunvi thought that through this duel he attracted the attention of the old storm detachment, Kujin and Hosan. Now the following problem has appeared. It is not known what Sanjun is going to do before the arrival of the Dark Lord. Meanwhile, the lonely carriage stopped in the mountains, and the spider asked how much they still have to go. He did not think that it was so far, because if they get too far, Wunvi could kill them, thinking that they fled. Suddenly he felt a stop, and noticed that Sanyon said that they had come without warning, and it was interesting whether there would be a master of the temple there, and the spirit realized that a sorcerer lives here, which poisoned the master. Suddenly the spider felt a strong dark energy emerging from the temple, trying to understand who he really was. At that very moment the door opened, and from there a figure came out that thanked the follower of the Namgun for the arrival. She added that the master of the temple ordered her to meet them, and the woman asked how he found out that she had arrived. Having removed the hood, the girl said that he was waiting inside, and the spirit could not believe that he was now watching the Zhengs. The spirit was dumbfounded that he uses Zhengs, a creature that is difficult to control even the most capable alchemists. She was just like a maid, and it does not look like a sorcerer's dwelling. And is it enough that they have already said? However, there is no much, so you need to fulfill the order of the master so that he will listen to his request. Meanwhile, the sorcerer asked him to give him the prophecies, turning to the higher forces, asking him to send him bright devinces. At that very moment, Jiangsha approached him and told Vladik of the storm that Madame Namgun had arrived. He ordered her to let her in. Sanjun politely greeted the Lord of Berijan. The sorcerer replied that she was here because everything went according to plan. It is full of greed. Their God has mercy on those who regularly turn to him, and not those who only ask for anything. The woman waved her hand, asking in response, and if it is one who puts more than any other on the needs of the temple. On her orders, the servants brought 2 chests stuffed with silver coins. Then she asked us what he would answer. Turning his face slowly, John showed a terrible smile, answering that he, of course, would have mercy on them. The sorcerer began to study the coins while Sanjan said that if everything works out, she would add another box. John replied that as expected from Madame Namgun, she knows better than others how to get the mercy of their god. Returning to his place, the sorcerer smiled again, asked how he could help her this time. A woman with a serious look asked if he remembered the request with which she came last time. John remembered how she asked to rinse the brains of the child of the concubine, adding that this request is still in force. Sanjan explained that the situations have changed and something was needed faster and more reliable because the past plan did not work. She thought that he was just a pawn, which can be used and thrown away like an unnecessary thing. But the thoughtfulness of his actions in combination with the attitude of Kujin will bring her many problems in the future. Without wasting time, the woman asked directly whether he could turn him into Jiang's, once and for all, saving her from him. The sorcerer noticed that she was in earnest, while the spirit was imperceptibly observed, and listened with horror their dialogue. With one jump, he jumped out the window, telling himself that he should notify the young master of the future. If this bastard, the Lord of the Storm, is able to create Jiang's, it will be difficult for the young master to cope with him now. At that very moment, the spirit froze, noticing in front of him the beasts of Jiang's, who were literally revived by the corpses of animals. The very fact that he is so ease creates Jiangsha beasts, which means that this is a sorcerer from the Valley of Ghosts of the Blackbone. Spider in horror stated that the Maosan sect faction had turned into a heavenly demonic cult. Meanwhile, John said with a smile that Madame Namgong was watching. The woman did not expect that they could pursue her. The sorcerer replied that they had unusual ghosts. The patron around the guy could be more problematic than they thought. Sanjun understood the hint and sighed heavily, saying that she would add another box, because this request is very important for her. Since she increased payment, he must reveal the personality of the puppeteer, as well as turn the child into Jiang's. John agreed, asking with a smile why look for his patron if he himself kindly granted them. At the same second, behind the woman, a warrior appeared with the rest of the skin, snow, white hair, and red eyes. The sorcerer ordered him to grab the escaped ghost and find the sorcerer standing behind him, no matter what it costs. The warrior accepted the order, after that disappeared suddenly as he appeared, not leaving traces of his stay here. Having got out, the warrior was surprised that Jiangsha's animals still did not catch him. Apparently he was rather vague. Meanwhile, the spider who tried to escape suddenly felt extremely unpleasant energy. Turning around to appreciate the situation, the spirit noticed a huge pile of animals, which continued to pursue him. Before getting into the mouth of one of the animals, a spider with tears on his eyes asked the young master to escape. Meanwhile, in White Pavilion, Winvi asked her sister if she would leave. She replied that she would leave when she sober up. The guy thought that Yo-chan and Sanjun from this moment would try to harm him without even hesitation. Kugzin also knew this, and now he asked me not to interfere with him. The girl asked not to worry and continue to train. Spirit said that for the native of the Xinshan sect, she has a conscientious character, which is surprising for the child Hosan and Sanjan. Suddenly they felt a blow and a request to shut up if they do not want to turn into ghostly pills. Spirits asked the master if something happened. The guy replied that something had changed in him after today's battles. Previously, when using martial arts between his thoughts and actions, there was a delay, like a faulty mechanism. He thought the reason is that he is still a newborn martial arts, although he feels a decrease in this delay. One of the spirits stated that he was a senior mentor of the heavenly demonic cult, and then suggested that his body examine. Having climbed around Winvi, the spirit asked if he heard about the accumulated merits that was slightly different from the internal energy. Usually, an increase in internal energy implies the usual training that does not differ from the rest. But the enlightenment, the influence of the family, the increase in the training mainly depends on it. It will grow as merits are received. Carefully considering everything, the guy, for the sake of clarification, asked if the merits accumulated on the reputation depend on the reputation. The spirit answered in the affirmative, adding that it works even when using techniques that absorb the energy of others. He actually does not increase his internal energy so much, although he is a special case, and there is no clear research. The spirit thinks that the merits of the body accumulated over 17 years of life, and the new ones accumulated by him after rebirth are very different. The very fact of reducing delay means that the accumulated merits of different Vunvi begin to harmonize. The guy thought that he began to understand and accept the personality of Wunvi, so the accumulated merits began to harmonize with him. Since he cannot deliberately live like the past Winvi, subconsciously he thought about this body as an alien. After the duel, his thoughts turned from the use of martial arts in the body of Wangvi. In it uses martial arts. The feeling that he had experienced after a meeting with Kujin and Hosan slowly blurred his subconscious barrier. When asked how much these merits are connected, the spirit replied that about 40%, and this similarity will still grow. Then he will be able to easily achieve success in martial arts, and that was all he needed now. To improve mystical art, it is necessary to have harmony between the body and soul. Vunvi is sure that the higher the connection between the body and soul grows, the faster he will achieve the old level of mystical arts. Meanwhile, Kugzin thought a lot had changed, and Winvi was so confidently practicing martial arts. Although sad and she feels guilty that her brother had to change, Wunvi began to build her own castle. And from now on, its walls will only grow up. But the mother will definitely not wait until her brother's castle is getting an opportunity. Suddenly, the dark essence inside it with a smile stated that something was approaching, but the girl noticed this too. Vunvi also stopped his training, along with the spirits, paying attention to the ghostly fog. Smiling, the guy said that due to the style of manufacturing Kinavari poison, he already knew that they were using ghostly witchcraft. It seems that they finally fell on the hook, and it was time to see how big this fish. Meanwhile, the subordinate John told himself that the trace brought him here, according to the assumption of the master. The patron of the son of concubines used a special type of ghostly witchcraft, a magical instrument. Since the trace breaks, it means that the sorcerer is somewhere nearby, and he could no longer wait for the upcoming meeting. The warrior noticed that the ghostly fog rose high enough, but he has the property of blocking consciousness. And if he limits it with the formation of thorny ghostly fog, then his goal will not be able to slip away. It doesn't matter what will happen inside this fog. No one will notice this outside. But now you need to find a victim. At that very moment, he was surprised to notice that his thread leads straight to his second goal, the son of a concubine. Perhaps the sorcerer did not use ghostly witchcraft himself, but used a guy to activate the equipment. Winvi played out what kind of fog was, while the warrior thought that the puppeteer was smarter than he expected. But since the child of the concubine is also his goal, if he attacks him, the puppeteer will certainly appear to protect him. In any case, he will not be able to feel anything around him because of the ghostly fog, which simplifies the matter. He was going to turn it into Zhang's, even retaining all the limbs, but at the same second a figure began to appear from the fog. The warrior in shock thought that there was someone else here, but at the same moment he felt a strong blow of the girl, shouting, "Got caught." Winvi said that this is still a large fish because they sent here a deadly swordsman in the bird of Gudiao. The perfumes unanimously stated that they definitely arrived from the valley of the ghost of the black bone. There could be no mistake. But this guy looks like a fatal swordsman, smaller, and a world of a third rank. But whether everything goes exactly according to plan. Tao's from the Xinshan sect is unlikely to lose Jangs of the same rank, but this Jiangyi will be a killer sent by Namagun Sanjan. Whether Kugzin controls the situation or simply fulfills his debt by Taos to destroy evil was unknown. Now he can only trust her determination, because she can calmly deal with this swordsman. The warrior felt the energy of the sword of Xinshan, who arrives in the district of 9 dragons, and this girl must be Kugzin. When they torn the distance, the swordsman immediately extended his hand, asking the mistress to listen to him, not wanting to fight with her. However, the girl returned forward again, saying loudly that she did not want to listen to the thrill of miserable demons. She ordered him to die again, after which she brought down a flurry of strokes of the sword, thereby dumbfounding the warrior. Jiangyi decided to retreat, thought that he could not control her, and his hands had already begun to tremble. Even if he achieves his goal, he cannot fight at full strength so as not to injure Kuzin, otherwise the Namagun will terminate the contract. If this happens, the Lord will be furious and will torture him, and he knows how terrible it will be. However, the girl's voice was distracted from thoughts, who waved her sword, asking what he thought about. She used a lightning rod destructive blade, ordering him to stop thinking and just die. Blood poured from his body when he thought that the truth could die here if he did nothing. But since he would die in any case, he decided to give up the full, saying that he was sparing her because she was the daughter of Lady Namgun. He added that she herself was to blame, that she did not listen to him, thereby surprising Kugzin when her mother mentioned in dialogue. The next second he began to emit energy, blades began to appear from his hands, and the body began to strengthen. The warrior used the technique of ghostly transformation, increasing in size, viciously hanging over the girl. Kugzin did not expect something like that, and however, she managed to put up a sword in order to defend herself from a sudden attack. The war stated that if she retreats, he would not suffer at all, and it will be easier for both of them, because his mission is the request of the mistress. Meanwhile, the girl asked herself not to hesitate, because she herself perfectly knew that her mother conceived it all. Therefore, she must defeat him, and find out who is behind him, to convince them to turn their mother from this path. At that very moment, the swordsman felt a blow of anti-demonic energy, which could cause him serious damage. Then he began to counterattack, thinking that if she had not been so direct, this battle could be avoided. But if it continues, despite the thorny, ghostly fog, a detachment of the wind of justice will find them. It will be in a losing position if the battle lasts, and the fog soon weakens, so you need to use Gudiao. At that very moment, Wangvi, along with the spirits, noticed Gudiao. One of the spirits said that he did not allow him to release even more fog. The guy replied that finally the warrior used him, because he almost fell asleep with boredom. But it would be better if Kuzin fought with him. At that very moment, the bird changed the direction, deciding to attack Winvi, and the guy ordered her to be inclined in front of him. He used the torment of the evil ghost, the first stage of purple eyes, as soon as Gudiao flew closer. Winvi did not even budge, while the bird pierced her head on the floor, thereby surprising even the guy. Spirits were surprised that he did not even bend his neck, deciding that Gudiao had a strong body first of all. A huge amount of resources and time was spent on the creation of this guy. They needed to attack the master. Winvi replied that this was not even his ability, but he was so excited, after which he ordered the bird's head to rise. He decided to give her two options, one of which was a battle against a swordsman, and the second, to grow against him. Gudiao immediately rushed off, starting to attack a warrior who did not expect an ally to go against him. The swordsman was dumbfounded that the puppeteer's abilities were enough to take control of Gudiao. He also understood that it was more dangerous that the enemy is somewhere nearby, and he needed to quickly make the right decision. At the same second, a girl appeared behind him, waving a sword, which was ready to deliver the last blow. Kugzin said that turning back in the other direction, he attracts her to cut him, after which she cut off his left hand. The swordsman asked what this means, because she could kill him with an attack, but hardly decided to retreat because of the mistress. Kugzin answered negatively, adding that she plans to break him to shreds so that he repented of his mistakes. Then she will slowly save his soul, the warrior asked in shock. Do the Taoists who are trying to help others behave like that? At that very moment, Gudiao flew to him again, leaving 3 deep wounds on his face with his sharp claws. Kugzin did not know why the beast of Jiangsha, who produced a ghostly fog, was behaving next to Wunvi, but she needs to get rid of the remnants of the ghostly fog, so she decided to use the hermitable style. Having waved a sword, the girl decided to deliver a crushing blow to him to destroy evil to kill the swordsman. At that very moment, the warrior began to decrease, realizing that the technique of ghostly transformation began to dissipate. Without wasting time, he began to flee in the opposite direction, wanting to break the distance with the girl as quickly as possible. Kugzin rushed after him, asking where he was going. Gudiao suddenly joined her, flying in the sky. The swordsman decided to use the cut, offhand, as an explosive device, but the girl was able to resist the explosion. As soon as the swordsman broke some pill in his hands, the Kugzin sword collided only with smoke, and the warrior himself disappeared. Without meeting resistance, the girl concluded that he had escaped, and she could not finally get rid of him. Suddenly, she said that everything was going according to his plan, after which she asked Wunvi to be extremely careful. The girl noticed that someone was using demonic arts, but at the same moment her brother asked if she could help him. After listening to the situation, Kujin asked if they should kill Jiangs, intending to attack them. The guy answered in the affirmative. Let's explain that first they need to dial the spell so that they would figure it out with all one fell swoop. Although he escaped and belongs to the side branch of the clan, he still managed to penetrate the main estate and spread the fog. This means that if he feels a threat, he simply uses a return talisman to escape. And now 1v is not enough to defeat such a Jianggi in the place in which he put the spell. But if Kugzin can dispel them, but he will easily reveal the personality of the person standing behind this Jiangs. The girl thought about, answering that if he was telling the truth, Jiangs with whom they deal with was called her mother. When asked what he will do if she decides to obey the will of her mother, the guy replied that he simply seems to be a loser in this game. Then she returned and asked in response, doesn't this mean to be part of the Tan clan, thereby surprising her sister? For Winvi, who has experienced so many difficulties, the Tan clan is just a small bunch of false deceptive people. But Kudzen is sure that he will understand that not all of them. For this, they all need to try a little more. Suddenly, she paid attention to the bird, which for a few seconds called the girl with her croaking. Meanwhile, the swordsman with a cut-off limb tried to escape as far as possible from the white pavilion. He could not believe that he was running away after a failed task, and even if he again attaches his hand, it would not save him. After the loss of Gudiao and the increase in security in the district of 9 Dragons, the master will never forgive him for this. Then he howled loudly and viciously into the air, saying that everything would be fine if it were not for this damned woman. Suddenly, someone behind him said that if he was going to rest here, he should have gone a little further. The swordsman turned sharply, not believing that they had already tracked him, when he suddenly noticed the son of the concubine, not realizing what he was doing here. Perhaps this puppeteer pulls the threads. He could track down the source of the fog, since he is able to take control of Gudiao. But all this did not matter, because this is his chance to win, and now he needs it is to catch a guy. In this case, he will be able to reveal the identity of the puppeteer and return Gudiao, in which case the master will be pleased with him. Suddenly he felt ghostly energy. He decided that the patron had put some vagrant ghost to him. However, this form looks familiar, when suddenly Wunvi said that he realized that Sanjun was finally desperate. But he could not think that someone from the clan Namgun was an ally of the Valley of the Ghosts of the Black Bone. With a dumbfounded look, Jiangsha asked how he knew about this, but Wunvi did not give a direct answer. At that very moment, the guy began to envelop the dark energy, transforming his suit, creating a combat robe of the evil ghost. If the swordsman knows that this is, then he is an old-timer who found the times of the former Wunvi and knows about his strength. 10 years ago, everyone in the Valley of the Ghosts of the Black Bone knew about this, which means that he also belonged to their number. This witchcraft weapon was used by the young heavenly demon Wunvi whenever he created chaos. Jiang Shu realized that this was an evil ghost, after which he asked why he had such a thing of all people. The guy asked in a cold and smug tone in response if he thinks that he would be so easy to answer. Then he stated that he had a lot of questions for the swordsman, but he decided to repeat the last question of the Wunvi. The guy replied that, of course, this would not happen right now, after which he offered to talk after his death. Getting into the combat rack, Jiang Sha thought that if he was really the heir to the cult, he would kill him with one blow. Then the swordsman noticed that he was coming, but whether he uses mystical arts or the strength of the ghostly king. In the next instant, the warrior saw a fist in front of him, not expecting martial arts, and immediately felt severe pain. The blow was so strong that he threw him a few meters, forcing him to hit his back on the tree. Landing to his feet, the swordsman immediately realized that it was the secret art of the family of 9 dragons: dance. Having covered his face with his hand, he tried to understand why the enemy uses martial arts instead of mystical. Then he smiled and shouted that he was not the heir to the cult, because he could not use martial arts, and he is a monster who is able to destroy the dead swordsman like him with one finger, unlike this imitator. The warrior does not know where he saw the abilities of the heir to the cult, having learned to rise well with them. Suddenly, single binding chains began to fly next to him, but the warrior knew that this was a weapon created by the heir. Pointing his finger at him, Wunvi said that he missed a little, adding that a genius was more suitable for him, not a monster. The swordsman could not believe that he was really the heir to the cult, but why he uses martial arts, and generally alive. At that very moment, the guy asked if he was puzzling, asking himself a question whether he is a person he knows or not. Then Wunvi asked if he had time to think about this, and the warrior understood that he was right. If he is pulling, a detachment of the wind of justice, or Kujin, screaming like a horse, will come to his aid. And as long as they know their personalities, he cannot escape. You need to somehow silence him. However, everything will be more complicated if he really is the heir to the cult, when suddenly the guy asked why he still did not budge. After all, looking at how Gudiao drags with him everywhere, we can conclude that he would not have coped with one person. Then he decided to return, because he needed some information. But the guy like him would definitely not have trusted her. The warrior realized that they were mocking him, and then stated that he would make him regret these words, even if it costs life. The swordsman easily went to a provocation, after which he was the first to rush into the attack, swinging the remaining limb. He did not react in any way. Wunvi calmly said that he had finally moved away, having begun to do at least something. Fastening under the blow, he thought that the warrior was trying to win the time, taking them away from the estate. But this will only hurt him if he is frightened, so Wunvi needs to try everything that he could not use in the battle with Kujin. Having imprinted the guy's head in the rock, the swordsman thought that he was too carried away, and now he had to deal with the corpse. At least his chatter reminded him of the heir to the cult, although he did not live to remember him after his death. But at the same moment the guy grabbed his hand, answering that now he finally felt a little relief. If he wanted to relax, at least he should move away after using the return talisman. Then the guy asked how he was going to deal with his corpse with such attacks, thereby dumbfounding the warrior. Then Jiangshu realized that this was really the combat robe of the evil ghost of the heir to the cult. But it was impossible. He decided to continue to attack the enemy, gathering all his strength to force him to shut up and leave this world. He strengthened his attacks, loading the demonic essence, but still they do not act on him, no matter how he tried. Vunvi, with a calm look, said that even turning him into a corpse with such attacks would take years. It angered Jiang's even more when he swung widely and decided to inflict the most powerful blow to him. The warrior froze when he noticed that Wunvi intercepted his fist, saying that checking the robe for strength was completed. Then he clenched his fist, adding that it was time to check it in action, after which he hit the swordsman in the stomach. After flying a few meters, Jiangsha thought that this thought confirmed his thought. He was weaker than him, and attacks did not inflict the deadly wounds. Therefore, he will be able to defeat him when the battle robe of the evil ghost will fall, and the mystical energy will run out. Suddenly, Winvi asked if he laughs, because his attacks were weaker than he expected, and hopes to win when the robe is dissipated. He added that he came to him, knowing that he was Jiangshu from the White Ghost Valley, and was ready in advance for this. Rising to his feet, the warrior asked if he was so pompous only because he was on the battle robe of the evil ghost. Getting angry, the swordsman defiantly asked him to show him what he was capable of in the battle against Jiangsha. He had to do this before his mystical energy ended to maintain his vestments. After that, he began to attack a guy who did not attempt to counterattack, when he suddenly noticed the art of illusion. At this time, Wunvi went to him behind him and hit his foot in his neck, but the warrior withstood this, calling him a nimble rat. The guy thought that this attack also did not inflict a deep wound. It seems that now he could not break through the defense of the dead swordsman. Then he slowly sank to the ground, and realizing that he would have to work a lot before returning the previous force. But unfortunately, the time has come to end, and therefore Winvi began to concentrate his energy again. At that very moment, Jiangsha asked if he still did not understand that any attacks were useless against him. Withstand every attack of the guy, the swordsman shouted that he was tickled, but his appearance was extremely angry. He stated that unlike his robe, his body did not wear out. Not very soon he would pay him the same coin. Suddenly Winvi stopped, said that he was worried, that if he was advancing from all attacks it would drag on. But he was climbing out of his skin so that they all fell into him, although he thought that in the process of turning into Jiangshu the brain does not decompose. The warrior replied that the guy was crazy, being driven into a corner, and then decided to see how long he could move his mouth. But before he had time to agree, blood poured out of his mouth, interrupting his solemn speech and a wide smile. The sword did not recognize the symptoms of poisoning with poison, and tried to understand how he, Jiangsha, could be poisoned. Wunvi explained that usually the poison would not work, while the warriors in shock realized that it was the poison of lost souls. The guy explained that due to the fact that he took all the blows with his naked body, it was possible to hit each part of it. At that very moment, the swordsman began to scream, and the damn lost souls, which dared to eat his body so brazenly. The souls first left his body, but only in order to attack again, bringing him an unprecedented pain. Unable to withstand this, the warrior shouted loudly, after which he knelt down, and his body began to smoke slightly. When Wunvi approached him, Jiangxi asked him to answer the last question. He was the heir to the cult. Crouching in front of him, the guy replied that he would not die here, after which he prepared a special chain for him. When the swordsman saw a single binding chains in front of him, his body trembled when he realized what they wanted to do with him. Taking off his robes, Wunvi turned to the elders, saying that he needed to go, since he spent a lot of time. Turning around, he released the spirits, asking them to teach a beginner properly so that he dutifully obeyed him. The elders immediately surrounded the swordsman, gladly accepting the order, and realizing that in the near future they were waiting for fun. Winvi thought that it was not so simple. Perhaps this is due to the fact that he was not yet able to do this at a subconscious level. But he had problems set in Dabian and mystical fields requiring a lot of time to prepare. He needs to practice more in martial arts and improve his skills in mystical arts. He knew that he needed to work even more, when he suddenly froze, felt that someone was watching him. The guy tried to understand whether they had all seen who it was, and where they were hiding, when he suddenly drew attention to the top floor. There, standing in the window, was Tanho-san, whose gaze was faced directly to the guy, and he did nothing to leave. Even considering the fact that he is the most terrible member of the clan, he really did not budge, although he saw everything. Perhaps, due to a great distance, he did not see what he was doing, but he should be understood with whom he fought. At that very moment, Kugzin ran to his meeting, holding the bird by the neck, and Wunvi was surprised that she had traveled this path. He was dumbfounded by this picture, while his sister asked if he was wounded, and what happened at all while she was gone. The guy replied that he was in order, and the girl answered the dumb question that she thought they could come up with something. At first she wanted to cut off his wings so that he could not escape, but it turned out to be more difficult to do than she thought. And instead she just beat him, and the guy made a note not to argue in the future so as not to get under the blow. Suddenly Winvi bowed, said that he missed him, although she gave him the opportunity, but he could not cope with her. Kugzin replied that the main thing is that he was intact, after which she offered to beat this Jangs until they find out where they were hiding. Realizing what the girl was talking about, the bird somehow broke out, hiding behind Winvi, thereby surprising Kugzin. The bird began to puzzle plaintively, to which the guy did not answer that it would be difficult to carry Jangs of this size into the house. Hearing his words, the bird immediately began to transform, gaining the guise of a bird containing a hand. Wunvi said that he would hold him in a white pavilion, and then invited his sister to relax a little after the battle. The girl replied that he was right. With an uninvited guest is over, so she would go and asked him not to linger. Turning around, she went to the building, but her face immediately frowned when she began to ponder this situation. After a while, Wunvi asked the swordsman if his master was a damned mentor of the White Bone. Having received an affirmative answer and a low bow, the guy thought that he had not seen this old man for a very long time. The new spirit suggested that they were familiar with the mentor of the White Bone. Winvi replied that he did not drive strong friendship with him. This old man taught him the art of death, and 100 years of his training were given to the heir in just a month. In any case, in addition to him, there is a blue bone merchant, red bone horror, as well as insignificant green bones. Perhaps 4 of the Valley of Ghosts are black bones near the district of 9 Dragons and are plotting something. 4 elders near the district of 9 Dragons can show their interest at such a moment for only one reason. The solemn meeting of the Dark Sovereign, Munhyuk, one of the 10 greatest masters of martial arts, headed a new detachment. According to the divine cult, they cannot simply observe how the defense of Sichuan intensifies. Usually they introduce traitors into a detachment, or try to reduce its numbers, but they would not need the elders, especially considering that Sanyon, madam of the family of 9 Dragons, also belongs to the Namagun clan and is connected with this. They plot something much more, a group of destroyers of barriers that control the heavenly demonic cult. This group was called a community, and something terrible is coming if they have secret support for the cult. Plans that used to seem crazy can suddenly become realized, although it would seem funny before. At that very moment, Winvi realized that they were trying to make an attempt on the Dark Lord. The spirits asked Jiang Sha if he thinks that the elders would overcome the Dark Lord, because even the ancestors of 9 demons could not. Wunvi suggested that these guys are scouts. The swordsman replied that he heard that support was coming from Tianshan. The guy was surprised that support comes from them, and not from the community, which would look much more logical. Then he turned to number 15. It was this name that now wears a new spirit. The guy asked if he knew something about the community. With the nervous look, the swordsman replied that he was too stupid to understand which community he talks about. Winvi thought that the dead swordsman from the Ghost Valley and the Black Bone seemed to not know about it, but this is good. To get more information about the community, he needs to catch an old monster, a damned mentor from a White Bone. The problem is that with his current force, he cannot overcome even his magic barrier, not to mention victory. However, this is all that he can extract from number 15, so it makes no sense to continue to interrogate him. At that very second, the door opened loudly and Gon ran inside, loudly asking the young master whether he was all right. The breathless man said that the head of the clan ordered him to bring him to him, and then asked what happened in the yard. The swordsman began to whisper in his ear that he was talking about the traces remaining after his battle with his sister. Winvi asked the man to calm down, deciding to explain everything along the road, adding that he was not arranged. Then he thought that with the help of a detachment of the Wind of Justice and Tongon, everything would be much easier. But there is a larger problem. He must build on how much Hosan knows and what his next move will be. Sometime later, the guy politely bowed, saying that Tan Vunvi from the White Pavilion welcomes the head of the clan. The man replied that he understands why he keeps a distance in public places, but now he talks formally and in private. The guy replied that a lot of time had passed since they spoke alone, and asked for forgiveness. Gon in a whisper asked whether he was shaking. They barely achieved his location, and he decided to personally spoil everything. Winvi noticed with a smile that his mentor decided to praise him, after which he proposed to continue to observe. The guy asked if this should be considered as a public business, that he was going to reward him for victory over the enemy. He knew that Hosan called him not to talk like a father and son. It was a real check. We need to find out how much each of us knows about the situation. The man realized that his son knows the reason for his visit. Having frowned, Wunvi said that he looked as if he was able to find out the personality of the attacker as quickly. Then he added that his wife is connected with him, But such a statement did not make a proper impression. Hosan replied that this is primarily due to the arrival of the patriarch of the clan. It turns out that he knows about the plan with attempted. The man said that judging by his reaction, he already understood this, so he could omit some details and details. Suddenly Hosan said that he had heard that he had changed, but this is already too much. His energy, resourcefulness, and vision of the situation. This is not the level that can be achieved in several years, so he was waiting for his opportunity in this deep pit. Then he smiled, added that he had been deceiving him for so long, and his vileness truly appropriate to the Tang clan. Wunvi thought it sounds like an insult, but in reality, this is the best compliment that can be obtained in the clan. When the guy bowed and thanked him, he heard the imperious tone of his father, and the request not to cross the line. The man added that he would not intervene with his spores with Sanya, but the guy should not touch those who are behind her. Wunvi did not expect that he allows his son to fight with his wife to the last, but he wants to leave a cult. It will be difficult to immediately strike a white bone. Hosan said everything he wanted, so it's time to return to himself. Suddenly the guy stopped him, saying that before leaving he must reward him for victory over the offender. The man replied that since he was so trying to beg her, apparently this is something that he could not get on his own. Turning to him, his father asked to say what he wanted. He replied that he wanted to train in a monstrous forest. In a special environment of the monstrous forest, a wide variety of poisonous insects and mystical animals are found. In this case, he will have a way to quickly restore his mystical power to the level of a past life. Hosan replied that only the patriarch of the clan can give him permission, and he can only ask him about this at a meeting. Wunvi answered with surprise that he understands everything, thinking that now there is no talk of this. Suddenly the man put his hand in his bosom and pulled out a butterfly from there, asking he would not want to try it in return. Gon cried out dumbfounded, but the head asked him to calm down, but this did not help to calm the man's jerk. Wunvi could not understand what was happening, and what was the rare artifact, that even the master is at a loss. Although for him it looks like a simple decoration, but his father clearly would not give him something like that so simple. When asked, he doesn't like it. The guy replied that this was not so, but he felt a force emanating from Hosan. The energy around him prevents him from approaching, which means he wants Wunvi to take him in another way. At that very moment, he called on ghost number 15, after which he ordered him to grab this butterfly and bring him. After a couple of moments, Gona watched the butterfly herself inflated and began to move into Wunvi's hand. Without reacting to this, the head of the clan turned around, saying that now it belongs to his son. The man turned his head, calling Gona, while the shocked master tried to understand what had just happened. Meanwhile, Wunvi carefully studied the butterfly, trying to understand what it was and how to use it. Spirits said that it looks like an expensive trinket, but knowing these people, it can be a hidden weapon. The guy replied that no one asked them, after which he ordered them to go from here so that they would not interfere with thought. Meanwhile, Gon asked the chapter if he was sure of this, because this artifact was very valuable to him. Hosan replied that he was once, but the main thing is that Wang Wei said that he wanted to inherit the legacy of the Storm Detachment. Gon thought that he was still regretting, that he had not reached the goals that he left with the Storm Detachment. The head added that he showed this artifact to his other two children, but they did not show interest in him. But Wunvi somehow managed to take possession of a blood butter, as if a squad of the Storm himself wanted him to take it. If he could, perhaps the boy is able to unravel the secrets of the bloody butterfly. At that time, his words were heard by perfumes. After a while, Wunvi was surprised that his father said so, and then asked if he said that it was. The perfumes answered negatively, but they were absolutely sure that judging by their speech, it was something very valuable. This artifact absorbs a huge amount of spiritual energy every time it moves, which looks like a demonic tool. The guy carefully watched the butterfly, from which the energy emanated, trying to understand whether it was an instrument. Wunvi drove the spirit with his hand so that it was possible to carefully examine and try to solve this riddle. This is an object from the Tang clan so that spiritual energy cannot be its main feature. It cannot absorb so much energy. But when the butterfly absorbed his energy, Wunvi asked to stop resisting because she exposes him in a bad light. When he poured a huge amount of energy into it, she fell lifelessly, while the guy and the spirits froze. The next day, Wunvi said that he was so upset for a bloody butterfly that he could not sleep normally. He decided to deal with this later. But if the Master of White Bones finds out about yesterday's unsuccessful attack, he would like to make a move. At that very moment, he remembered the warning of Hosan, who forbade him to act recklessly. The guy all morning asked himself if there was a way to violate the plans of enemies without fear of Hosan's intervention. He does not think that such an opportunity will appear immediately. Most likely, he will have to wait a bit. At that very moment, Gudiao suddenly appeared in front of him, who interrupted his reasoning, starting to squeak. Wunvi thought that Gudiao could be strong, but he was not enough to fight with several dead swordsmen. If he is going to use it, you need to make it even more. For this, he will need to use the blood. Using his blood as an intermediary, using the voice of a dead man, he will turn his purified artifact. He will contain the knowledge of the ghostly king, and he will call it a little corny, the blood of the ghostly king. Spirits immediately stated that this was the famous blood of the ghostly king, but did not think that he was envious of someone's heredity. This blood is an unsurpassed potion for those who use demonic arts, and therefore he handed it to Gudiao. The bird immediately began to jump, but immediately froze when Winvi asked why he should give it to him, and how he deserved it. He then stated that if he indicates him the location of the farm of the animals of Jiangsha in the Blackbone Valley, he would give him. Hearing this proposal, the bird immediately nodded vigorously, after which there is a sphere outstretched by the guy. At that very moment, the animals felt an incredible surge of power that made his body transform. Winvi said that this must be a mythical bird that informs the occurrence of a demonic army, Ju. The guy asked what it was, to be revived. Then he added that now he would be more useful than the spider. At that very moment the bird spoke, but behind it appeared the spirit of a man who carefully examined himself. Spirits immediately flew up to him, recognizing the elder of the hut, asking, unless his soul was destroyed. Having ignored the question, the man turned to Winvi, asking with interest why he returned him here. The guy raised 3 fingers up, answering that there are 3 reasons. Firstly, this is a reward for his devotion. Most of his subordinates cursed his name when they were on the verge of death, but he distinguished himself noticeably. It is also associated with the second reason. He still clings to the hope that Winvi will protect his daughter. Crossing his arms over his chest, the guy explained that he did not even know her name or face, after which he asked how to find her. Suddenly he smiled, offering him to find her personally, with his own hands and strength. And the third reason was that it was easier to manage ghosts than idiots, although he could remain silent about the third reason. Frowning, the elder said that he thought to get rid of his chains, but now he understands that he could not escape from him. After he lost his wife, his daughter was the only reason for life, and she is his treasure. So since this damned Chan Hodson abducted his daughter, he was already dead, and could not return her. The elder betrayed the leader of the cult and heir to the worship for her, but could not protect, having lost everything. He could not think that he would provide another chance to return everything that he had lost during his lifetime. At that very moment, the man shouted loudly that he was begging him in fidelity. He would devote his soul to his work. Then he bowed, adding that his fate was in the Wunvi's hands, and he would follow his orders without hesitation. The guy was surprised that he had retained his memories, so he again asked where the Jiangyi farm was located. Ju sternly stated that if he gives the order, he would fly there right now and tear them with his claws and beaks. Winvi immediately gave the go, ahead, ordering to destroy the company and show the traitors the superiority of the divine cult. Having accepted the order, the bird abruptly fell off the place, flying out the window, lifting the air with a small layer of dust. The guy thought that if he begins to destroy the farm, the master of White Bones would be distracted from him, and this would give him time to think. Returning to the pavilion, Sanyan told herself that she was very tired after a night trip, when she suddenly noticed a note on the table. It was a report by Mu Jung. Given that the angle would be reached, it means that this is some urgent business, so it began to read quickly. The woman was dumbfounded that Yuo-chan and Saraz had a duel, and this guy won. He even fought with Kugzin to draw. But the most amazing thing is that the head of the clan was watching them all this time, which is why she could not believe what was happening. At that very moment, the door behind her opened, and Kugzin entered the room, which was not in the best mood. The girl immediately asked the question where she was. Sanjun immediately nervous, asking what brought her here so early in the morning. She explained that she had several urgent affairs, and her daughter clarified that this is what she could not tell her. Kujin added that Jiang's, sent specifically for Winvi, penetrated the estate at night. The woman made a surprised look. She thought that the one whom she saw yesterday was dealt with from Winvi. She did not like that they had noticed him, but she would do so. At that very moment, the daughter stated that she had fought with him. A dumbfounded woman asked to repeat what she had now said. Grabbing her daughter by the shoulders, Sanyan asked why she was, and whether she was wounded, to which she received a negative answer. Kugzin replied that Jiangsha mentioned her and hesitated, not daring to attack his customer's daughter. The woman's face immediately grimaced when she mentally asked herself what these idiots had done, so substituting her. She said that she was doing everything for the sake of Yuo-chan and her benefits, and this illegitimate child of an obstacle. The girl asked if she hates Wunvi, so much that Jiangsha's help is ready, when her daughter is part of the Xinshan sect, which fights similar monsters. At that very moment, Kugzin turned around, not wanting to look her mother in the eyes, because she very down her trust. The girl said that if she does not intend to turn off the path, She will have to stop her, even if she has to apply force. Sanjin tried to hail her, but to no avail, after which she grabbed her head, saying that her daughter did not understand how she feels. Namgun did not understand how Kujin could not understand, after which she screamed loudly and stated that everything was because of that creature. She had to take care of this before, until everything went so far, she urgently needed to go to the temple. Meanwhile, Gon asked Wunvi whether he really needed to walk here after last night. The guy invited him to return if he was about to whine. The man replied that he needed to follow the orders. At that very moment, they stopped in front of a huge building, which was a blacksmith of the famous Lu Ban. God-crazy in Taoist techniques using the name legendary figures is quite self-confident. Suddenly, a strong man came out from another room, asking if this loser here, Gon answered affirmatively. The master decided to introduce them, indicating that this is the owner of the forge, Tan Chugyun, a bearded man with a scar for half a face. Wunvi wanted to introduce himself, but the blacksmith interrupted him, said that that's second son of that cold Hozan. The guy heard that he knew their family since the storm detachment, but did not suspect that they were so close. When asked why they came, Gon replied that he needed to do something. Chugwon said that now there was so much work. Then he said that the guy came here because he was dissatisfied with what was given to him in the clan, so he can do everything he wants. This is logical because all people want to make sure that their weapons are in order before the Dark Lord appears. Winvi told him that the drawing is quite complicated, so he would need his explanation of how best to make it. The blacksmith answered displeasedly that he would do everything perfectly, even if the drawing for secretive weapons is complete bylife. The guy specified that the secretive weapon did not want. He was interested in the sword, which was a little surprised by the man. Chugyun asked if he wanted to become a Taos from Xinchin, like his sister, while Gon shouted loudly and displeasedly. The master began to shake the guy. I asked loudly if he came here with him for the sake of a sword, and not a secretive weapon. Wunvi replied that he asked him to find a blacksmith, but did not talk about secretive weapons. Gon could not agree with this. At that moment it became embarrassed, because he had completely different expectations about the new weapon of his student. Looking at the guy, the blacksmith said that he probably had high hopes for him, since he was so violently reacted. After that, he headed to another room, asking him to show his drawing so as not to lose precious time. Put the drawing on the table. Wunvi specified that he wanted to use this dark sword to modify it. Looking carefully at a sheet of paper, the blacksmith asked if he wanted to do this, thereby surprising Gona. Now they together carefully examined the illustration, while the master was asking, was this not a metal fan? Chugno was sure that it was definitely a sword, and Wunvi realized that he was really good, once he immediately understood the intention of the drawing. The blacksmith with a serious tone said that this is a very cunning weapon, and the guy thanked him for such words. The man replied that he did not need his sneakiness, asking him to tell more about this strange sword. Then they spent some time so that Wunvi could tell the most in detail what they wanted to see. The spirits were surprised that the young master was also understanding this, although they did not quite understand what they were talking about. He said that it was a sword, but he was clearly a form of a fan, and they also wondered why gunpowder needed in a sword. Then they looked at the thoughtful Gon, deciding that this guy also did not understand what was happening. Meanwhile, the blacksmith said that the guy was a little greedy. He said with a sly smile that he was quite ambitious. In the end, the man said that he would have to do it himself, and Gon was dumbfounded, that he personally would take work. With a thoughtful look, the blacksmith replied that this drawing is not for his students, and they could not make it. Wunvi's eyes widened when he realized that this was his chance, because the blacksmith, as if he had read his thoughts. Chug'en said that he wanted to show the sword he had made to the visit of the patriarch of the clan, in response to which the guy bowed. Wunvi replied that it would be a great honor for him, but the man said that only 20 days left before his visit. Then the guy asked, "Is it really impossible?" That the blacksmith replied that he had his own schedule. Wunvi said that it would be too difficult for him, and it seems that his request was too difficult for him. These words literally provoked a blacksmith, for whom there was nothing difficult and that he could not do. At that very moment he screamed that he, Lu Ban, Tan Chugyun, will be able to do this in 15 days, which he delighted Wunvi. Spirits, along with Gon, looked at his next successful provocation, thinking that another victim was caught. After a while, Wunvi thought that he was glad that he had the best blacksmith. It surpassed all his expectations. He was sure that Jiangshu had already dealt with the Jiang's farm, so he had time to think about other problems. Suddenly his sister called to him, heading for him with a drooping look. She said that she wanted to ask him something. Looking at her, the guy immediately felt the murderous energy of Azul, spectral traces that seep out. So she is not able to control her emotions so much that it is impossible to hide the style of a single world. Approaching him, the girl said that it could be unexpected, but asked what he was thinking about the past. Without looking into his eyes, She clarified the question of whether he keeps a feeling of resentment or something like that, and wants to know what he thinks. After thinking a little, Winvi released a little energy, asking with a smile in response if she could catch the wind. You can catch it for a second, but it is impossible to hold it in your hand if it is stopped. It would no longer be the wind. He asked how important the past has if there are so many things that he wants and should do. He concluded that the future is more important for him, when suddenly Kuzin smiled that she made a decision thanks to him. Passing by her brother, the girl said that she should do a couple of things, so you cannot wait for her for some time. At that very moment, she fell off the place and left her brother alone while he processed the words she said. Spirits noticed that such a good girl was angry and murderous energy emanated from her. Winvi gave a slogan to one of the spirits, asking to stop chatting and ordering to follow her. They took the order. The guy suggested that if Kugzin was so excited, must have been quarreling with the name Fun Sanjun. He does not think that this woman will simply sit back after a skirmish with her daughter and clearly begin to act. Opening the gate, Winvi smiled and thought then that it was better to prepare for an ambulance meeting with the guest. Toward evening, the servant informed the head that his youngest son was asking for a meeting. The Gon, who was with him, was surprised. Hosan with an impartial look, and ordered him to tell him to come in and waited until he finishes with business. After a couple of minutes, Gon asked the guy what he was doing here. He replied that he wanted to pay tribute to his father. The man advised to leave if he was about to say nonsense, but the guy replied that he was still a master of the 9 Dragons clan. The worried Gon asked in response to how to do something first, so that he treated him better. At that very moment, Hosan broke away from paperwork and asked his son why he still came. Wunvi replied that he had come to discuss this issue, which they spoke about the night before, and wants to conclude a deal. The head of the clan only called the name Gon, but he immediately understood everything, after which he instantly disappeared, running to fulfill the order. The man said that interfering in this question again, he risks preventing the advancement of the Tang clan plans. He hoped that his son had a good reason for this. The guy felt that this was not the energy that the head should possess. Having given an affirmative answer, Winvi noticed that he said about the clan's plans, which means they clearly planned something. Hosan said that if he wants to make a deal, they should both benefit, and asked what he could offer him. The guy did not reply that he had nothing that he can give him right now, but he can promise what he would give. At first, the man did not like such a proposal, but Wunvi said that he would defend his older sister. The expression on his father's face changed while the guy continued, saying that he knows well who Lady contacted. Using sound telepathy, Hosan asked him to continue, and Wunvi realized that there were still people here. He said that if the connection between the mistress and the demonic cult is disclosed, Kuzin and Yochan will not avoid consequences. A child of a spy of a demonic cult, he perfectly understands how they will treat children to Jianggu. This nickname will wear the rest of their lives, unable to wash off the shame that the mother granted them. Kugzin and Yochan will never be able to join Jiangha again, and their names will be forever discredited. The man replied that he was Tang Hosan, a man, that he headed a detachment of a violent wind to stop the demonic leader. After which he asked who would dare to hang such a label on his children. Wunvi replied that they would not say that before him. But the world is not so simple, and everyone will follow the language until the opportunity to remind the incident is presented. Therefore, he will try to make such a stigma on Tankuzin and protect it on his own. Hosan decided to leave aside which, but he was going to fulfill his promise, asking what he wants to receive in exchange. Wunvi replied that since his participation will not be small, he wants to take an active part in his plans. The man asked if he considered himself capable enough to be included in his plans. The guy replied that he would prove to him what he was capable of, and personally would bring him the head of a demonic leader, a white bone ghost. Meanwhile, John sat in his place, turning to the Buddha of the infinite light, until a woman prevented him. Sanjin asked how he could fall like that, and you understand how much she did for him. Without waiting for an answer, she asked if he knew that her daughter told her that he could not cope with one person. The sorcerer loudly interrupted her, and from these, which understands that his judgment was erroneous, since everything turned out so. Then he slowly turned around, menacingly saying that he had also lost the student, so he would not stand aside. He asked her not to worry, saying that he himself would come out against him, but at the same second his speech was interrupted by Jiang's. When asked why such a noise, the girl replied that this is an emergency that requires his attention. John sighed heavily, after which he politely asked the mistress to sit down and wait a bit. She does not like that she is humiliated, but the skills of the master of the temple are worth it, so she is forced to endure all this. At that very moment she smiled, thinking that if the master of the temple said that he would come out, then Suz would definitely be destroyed. Suddenly the woman shuddered. He heard the loud question of the sorcerer. He was shocked that the farm of the Jazhandi beast was attacked. He could not believe that Ju, with a similar energy to Gudiao, his creation, destroyed them all in such a short time. Unable to stand it, Sanjan decided to ask what was happening, when suddenly John insulted her and abruptly grabbed her by the throat. Unable to restrain his anger, he directed her head in the ground, saying that she dared to deceive him. There is a high-class sorcerer with sufficient authority to pick up the parasitic crow which he created. Then he asked if she would think that he would believe that he was standing on the side of some guy from the Tan Branch clan. John concluded that she, Namgun, conspired with this sorcerer in order to hit them in the back, caught by surprise. The frightened woman immediately replied that she did not know what he was talking about, and was never involved in this. He asked if she would understand or pretended to be underestimated by the Valley of the Ghosts of the Black Bone. Sanjun could not believe that it was the Valley of the Ghosts of the Black Bone, and did not know that this place was part of the demonic cult. John decided that she certainly knew nothing judging by the reaction, and the Namgun family simply used her. Letting her throat, the sorcerer stated that there was a misunderstanding, and he sees that she was really not involved. Having cleared his throat, the woman tried to realize that she had contacted a demonic cult, without realizing it. Her family pulled her into this, which means that the Namgun clan openly collaborates with a demonic cult. At that very moment, John turned to her, deciding to clarify the name of the Wunvi, remembering that someone else had this name. Then he added that she might not even ask, because now he has reason to tear him and the sorcerer standing behind him. As a result, he decided to ask for her help, and when Sanjun returned home, she told Wunvi that she was wrong. Suddenly she added that if she needed to apologize for something, she sincerely asks for forgiveness. The guy with a smile replied that it was very unexpected for him to hear his stepmother apologizes. She did not want, but such a deal. John said that they need to get the location of the bastard so that he would love her. But if she does not want to, then the sorcerer will make Jiangsha out of her to personally make sure of the task. From hopelessness, Sanjan agreed to this, and now she needs to use manipulations to find a clue. It will not be easy, but she should, at that time. Winvi said that she always behaved as if she did not care about everyone. Suddenly he smiled, telepathically said that she was afraid that the head of the clan would find out that she had contacted a demonic cult. At that very moment, a shock appeared on the woman's face when she asked herself how this guy found out about it. Looking into his eyes, the woman thought that he was not just chatting. The bastard was completely confident in his words. She only learned yesterday that this temple belonged to a demonic cult, and did not understand how he found out. Meanwhile, Winvi literally hung over her, saying that she looks very bewildered, which is very unusual. She thought that the puppeteer, with whom he was the last few months, was managing him, but now she doubted. These eyes do not belong to a person under someone else's control, and she does not know if his patron helped him. Her body trembled when she raised her eyes and looked at the stepson, realizing that he himself had come up with everything. However, he could only have a superficial understanding of everything. Therefore, she replied that he did not understand what he was talking about. Winvi asked if she would be against it if he said this to the head of the clan, and would draw a righteous wind into the investigation. Then the information about the strange temple, which she often visited, will be opened, and this is not given the objects of the Namagun clan in their storage. He thinks that then it will be very interesting, and who knows that the clan Namgun will say about all this then. Sanjun knew that they would put her as a goat. They would declare that they themselves did not know about her relations with the cult, and they would humiliate it. She replied that she was the wife of the head of the branch clan of the 9 Dragons. It could not be so easily getting rid of her. Winvi said that she herself does not even believe in it, and it seems that she cannot be honest even with herself. Raising her head and frowning, Sanyan decided to ask what he wanted. The guy replied that he was rather greedy. Over the next week, Sanjan brought him all sorts of jewelry, a mantle of wild silkworm, and more. In attempts to get these rare objects, Namgun did not have time to think about anything else. Then Vunvi said that one could still expect from the famous clan, because they have a whole fortune. The perfumes replied that he was amazing, and on him a real treasure. They were sure that Namgun was already ruined. One of them said that she needed so that she conceived with him, but the guy felt the irony of his words. Then Vunvi put his hand behind the bosom, saying that these things are useful, but this is the most important of everything, showing the green sphere. This is a pill made from a mixture of poisonous grass of fire and 1 bacteria, in a proportion of 1 to 1. One of the spirits realized that he was trying to reach the 6th level of skill in the technique of cultivating a poisonous dragon. The guy answered in the affirmative, adding that he would open his middle dange and reach the highest stage. Bacteria are used as a component for miraculous drugs like this, but they must be used correctly. Now this is the best option for him, as for someone who has mastered the technique of cultivating a poisonous dragon. The spirits replied that they understand what he was trying to do, but they decided that the poison was too strong. I did not know if his body would cope with him. In response to their question, He again put his hand in his bosom. I answered that for such an incident he has this. The next second he opened a small box, showing them the divine sphere of cleansing chi. This is a miraculous means that should strengthen internal energy, and created by the divine doctor of life and death. Throwing her into his mouth, he decided to first accept this in order to increase his internal energy for some time. This purely energy spreads throughout his body, and it definitely fulfills its purpose. Now the turn for the poisonous pills, according to the elders, is very difficult to digest this poison, but it will cope. With his current level in the technique of a poisonous dragon, it will be very painful, but he is forced to endure it. A few seconds later, the poison began to act, and Wunvi felt terrible, inhuman pain. Poisonous energy immediately began to leave the guy's body, and the spirits asked if the young master was in order. Wunvi felt that I was cut through his body. It was necessary to convert poison into internal energy for technology. He tried to concentrate energy and draw it into the upper dantian, but it turned out to be more complicated than he thought. For some time he tried to direct this energy to his heart, after which he made them merge together. At that very moment, the raging energy fell silent, and Wunvi realized that he had coped, having received the 6th level of skill. Spirits began to congratulate him on the achievement of the highest stage in just 2 months of martial arts. The guy thought it was a trifle, but he feels a pure essence in his average Danat and Peak of Dragon skill. At that very moment, someone said that he had heard a loud noise and ran here, thinking that they had invaders. This man was a Gon who held a weapon in his hands, and with a smile asked what he was doing here. Wunvi replied that he received a miracle medicine that Mrs. Namgun gave him, hoping to surprise the master. The man replied that he did not know what it was, but he could not even imagine how much she spent on it. Why did he hand the guy, asking if he wanted to experience how much he became stronger to test his strength? Getting into the combat rack, Wunvi said with a smile that he was really an excellent teacher, since he offers him this. The guy could not refuse such a proposal, after which he returned to the attack, saying that he would give up the full. Gon with a smile noticed that he was already using internal energy to his weapon, evaluating the talent of the guy. Having beat off his first blow, the master noticed that he was rather heavy, after which he suggested trying to recapture it. Wunvi noticed that he now sees his movements. In addition, he can control his body much more freer. He understood what it was like to be at this level of martial arts. Now he could see what Gon saw. And if he can use internal energy to control weapons, who can become stronger than before? At that very moment, dumbfounded Gon asked if he wanted to use 12 beats of a furious tiger with a spear. However, Wunvi completely ignored his question, starting to attack, not giving the master of time to think. Somehow reflecting the attack, the master said that now he would really have to make efforts in their duels. Putting a spear in front of him, the guy replied that he had already told him that he would make him work before exhaustion. A couple of hours later they sat and talked, when suddenly Gon said that one rumor was walking lately. They say that he and Mrs. Tang Ho-san have reconciled, but the master cannot even imagine such a thing, and that he was so touched by her efforts that he even abandoned the position of the heir, which also sounds crazy. The guy replied that he could have done it for the sake of peace in the family, but Gon asked if he realized what the world means in general. The master suggested that these rumors go because of those gifts that she makes him, but I am sure that this is all fictions. Moving to a whisper, Wunvi replied that he needed so that she would behave like that in order to get an advantage in the fight against the master of the White Skull. The man was surprised by the technique of frequency whisper, after which he asked who this master of the White Skull was. Suddenly, awareness came to him, and he loudly asked if he was talking about the head of the Black Bone Valley now. The guy was surprised because he thought that he had already heard about him from the head of the clan, and asked if he had taken part during the meeting, the master thought, and changed dramatically in the mood when they suddenly spoke of a demonic cult. Gon noticed that Wunvi is going to fight him. They are very serious about their safety. The guy asked if he was talking about a demonic magic net. He was surprised that he already knew about it. Their Jangs become stronger in this grid, and he is not sure that he can kill their leader, even if he loses on the full. Wunvi replied that he knew that it would be a serious failure on their part if he simply arranges a war. According to the spirit number 15, the forces in the temple now include 4 swordsmen of death and Jiangs, whose skills are quite high. He heard that the damned master of the White Skull reached a higher combat level after his death. Gon was surprised to ask what he would do, and whether he had a plan. Wunvi replied that he had almost finished training. He remembered how Sanjun turned to him, out of hopelessness, asking for helping her to break off the relationship with the cult. Wunvi was surprised that she came to him in the middle of the night to ask for help, because you might think that he wants to kill her. After which the guy suggested that the clan Namgun and the temple both pursue it, to which he received an affirmative answer. A woman, which was, said from the nerves that he knew in what a difficult situation she is now. The abbot of the temple promises to turn it into Jiangs if it does not lead him to the sorcerer who supports him. Winvi said with a smile that in this case a terrible fate awaits her, hoping to mock her a little. Suddenly, Sanyun loudly stated that she would do everything that he would say, just not to fall into his hands to the sorcerer. The guy asked if she could abandon ambitions about the position of the heir, which she had achieved for them for so long. The woman was dumbfounded, however. Holding the dress tightly, she said that Kudzin and Yuo-chan said to abandon her. She could also make him see her anymore, but now he was simply obliged to help her survive. Smiling, Winvi said that then he would have to do everything as he said, and then he will be able to get rid of this demon. However, first you need to make some preparations, so they will have to wait for some time. And now the last stage of his preparation will begin to win over the damned master of the White Skull. Meanwhile, Chugno told himself that he did not look at the sword carefully, because he was too passionate about the drawing. But this sword, in order to put it in order, will take at least 2 weeks, although there was little time. Demonic weapons made of black steel, filled with demonic ki, and Winvi wants him to make a sword from this. Being in an irritated state, the man called this kid cunning, realizing that he was thus fooling. Now he will have to work without sleep for 2 weeks. His students will not be able to help, given their level of skill. Yes, and he does not have a third hand, so I need to tell him that this will take more time than said earlier. Suddenly behind him, someone said that he had never thought that he was surprised to reach this, turning around. Then he asked what he was doing here, to which the Dark Lord, Tan Munhuk, replied that such a tone would upset him. Chugyun replied that he should be in 9 dragons, but now for some reason he is here, alone. The interlocutor with a smile replied that he got out secretly, to which the blacksmith replied that he was a burden for the rest. The Dark Lord looked at the drawing, saying that it was an interesting thing, and asked who ordered this sword. The blacksmith, with a dissatisfied look, replied that it was the child of Tan Hosan, and this answer was in earnest Munhyuk. Taking the drawing in his hands, the sovereign said that at least he heard that she was called a genius, but she was able to surpass herself. Chugyun decided to clarify what he had in mind the second child, and Munhyuk specified whether he had in mind Winvi. Vlastilin replied that he heard that he had a weak spirit of an even weaker talent. The blacksmith said that he was surprised. He is a real fox because he wants to use one weapon to switch between 2 techniques, and also use hidden weapons if the enemy creates a distance, which was a typical weapon of the Tan clan. Chugno added that he could have done him on time if it were all, but there is still something that confuses him. He invited Munhyuk to look at this material. The guy wants him to make a sword out of him. Winvi said that he studied witchcraft in order to use the damned poison on demonic weapons of black steel. To the question, what else? The blacksmith replied that this guy was a student of that lazy person. Munhyuk was surprised that Gon took the student. Chugno added that he had somehow convinced the master to inherit the storm dance. This statement made the sovereign flinch. The man frowned, while the blacksmith added that this means that the kid wants not just a weapon. He wants to get the ability to use a storm and damned spell, and this only proves the seriousness of his actions. Suddenly the Lord asked if he said that he did not have time to fulfill the order, to which he received an affirmative answer. The blacksmith in shock asked what he was going to do. Munhyuk replied that he was interested in how he uses this toy. A little later, standing at the harnessed carriage, Sanjun said, Wunvi, you are completed, as he asked. The woman asked if there were only 2 of them, to which he received an answer that his master would soon be here. At that very moment, the rut, which was easy, jumped out of the fence, thereby delighting the guy. Once on the ground, the master asked if they really needed to leave at such an inconvenient moment. Wunvi replied that now the best time, and Gon reported that he had gotten rid of Mujung, as they asked. The guy praised him, while the woman in shock asked why they decided to do this with him. Wunvi replied that Mujung was a spy, both the Namgun and the Temple clan. This statement was angry with Sanjun. She hid Mujung, but he already knew everything and even more. But now she realized that he was circling everyone around his finger. Rubbing his neck lazily, the master asked if there were only 3 of them, because he expected that there would be a little more people. Wunvi replied that while there were 3 of them, after which he handed the master a mask, which was the face of another person. When asked whether they must put it on, the guy answered in the affirmative, adding that otherwise they will be recognized for sure. A little later they noticed that the fog was getting thicker, which means that they entered their territory. Having taken the role of the servant, Gon asked the young master if he felt this, to which he received an affirmative answer. They can hide in a ghostly fog, but he sees them perfectly thanks to the eye of a dead man, without any difficulty. All these Jazayan animals strengthened their guards due to a raid on farms, so now they are carefully guarding their territory. In addition, this is not a lie that the damned master of White Bones was able to reach a higher level of martial arts. This is much better than the spell that he used before, when suddenly Wunvi felt a strange stream of magic. The guy ordered the spirit number 15 to appear, after which the ghost of the black swordsman appeared next to him. Crossing his arms over his chest, Wunvi asked the ghost if the Master of White Bones took his spellbook. He replied that he did not know the details, but he heard that much was lost when 12 black spectra passed through the old pavilion. Other perfumes immediately surrounded number 15 with displeasure, starting to insult Zhang's and ask how they dared. The guy thought that everything would be lost with the art of ignition of souls, but something managed to survive. Use witchcraft against the enemy who already knows how it works is how to try to open the door with the key inside. You need to be careful with what spells and use until he remakes the techniques of the ghostly king. When they arrived at the place, Sanjun immediately helped to leave the carriage, declaring her that they were in place. A minute later, Jiang Sha came to them, greeting the follower of the Namgun, and asked what brought her here. The woman confidently replied that she brought the things of the guy, as the temple master originally asked. Jiang Shu explained that they are in a state of increased readiness, so she will transfer the boxes, and satellites can wait here. Gon telepathically asked what to do, and whether it was necessary to just start fighting. But Wunvi asked him to wait. Sanjun said that they did not know whether these objects are saturated with witchcraft, and it is not known what she was doing with the dead. Then she again asked if she was sure that everything would be in order if she carried these boxes on his own. After a few seconds, Jiang Sha turned around and invited them to enter, casting suspicious glances at them. Standing in front of the door, the girl told the master of the temple that the follower of Namgun brought the things that he asked. In his voice he was glad of her appearance, after which he invited her to enter, and Jiang Sha began to open the door. Sanjun greeted the master, while the sorcerer with a smile asked if she brought his things. She replied that she could not say what objects were saturated with witchcraft, so that most things were brought. John replied that she worked well, because it was even better, after which he began to look forward to the box. Opening one of them, the sorcerer stated that he had not even discovered it, but already feels mystical power. He repeated again that she coped well, and in this way he would immediately find them, wherever they were. Suddenly John froze, finding a bunch of explosives inside, after which he raised his surprised look at the woman. However, he managed to notice only how 2 servants grabbed Sanyon and began to run away as far as possible. When the wick had already burned out, the realization of what was happening right now, and how Namhun deceived him. Running over a decent distance, the Trinity closed her ears so as not to deaf from a strong explosion in the temple. Gon took off the mask and said that this was supposed to neutralize these demonic magic. Wunvi added that this does not mean that mystical arts were completely destroyed. The master asked if he wanted to say that the damned Master of White Bones survived this explosion. The guy replied that he was Jiang Sha. The guy saw him activated his mystical energy before the explosion to avoid damage. So the sorcerer perhaps lost a couple of limbs, but he definitely survived, and now it is important not to let him escape. Moreover, this applies to them. Wunvi pointed to the sky, where several silhouettes of flying Zhangs were visible. At that very moment, several zombies landed in front of them, at the head of the maid John, who was very angry. With a formidable look, she asked how he dares to do so with the sacred land that does not belong to him. Wunvi replied that this was a group, because he only destroyed one house, and Gona specified that many would be angry because of this. One of Jiang Sha said that one of them is a warrior of a violent wind. In force is considered the second in power in 9 dragons. Following him, the second son of the family of 9 dragons. Their presence here means that the Tang clan found out about their plans. The girl replied that they needed to find out how tightly they deviated from the course. The goal is to capture them alive. At that very moment they were going to return to battle, but one after another, Zhangs began to fall from Gon's weapons. "Do not waste time." The man went closer to them, asking how they dare to pretend to be people. Jiang Sha thought that even if it was a sudden attack, he killed a dead swordsman with one blow. Then she realized that it was a martial art master that reached the level of the top, that she was a serious adversary. Meanwhile, Wunvi, starting from the ground, I said that he was pleased that the rut with him, along the way, wished him good luck. One of the swordsmen wanted to rush after him, but the girl ordered him to ignore him, because now he is not a threat. She showed us a man, saying that right now it is necessary to use everything they have to defeat the mustachioed. Gon with a smile asked if they were going to be captured, after which he suggested trying to do it. Meanwhile, John, who got out of the wreckage, could not believe that it was a fool who dared to betray them. His restoration slowed down, because the explosion distorted the foundations of his demonic magic circle. He needed to restore the arrow or destroy evidence and escape when he suddenly heard his voice behind him. It was Wunvi who said that he had come here for him. He was going to escape, which was not very hospitable. Seeing his real face, the sorcerer immediately recognized the second son from the Tang clan. I realized that this plan was the work of the head of the family. The guy said that they had not seen each other for a long time, the last time they met face to face when he studied with him. When asked what he was talking about, Wunvi said that although they specialized in different things, he was his teacher for a month. The sorcerer began to ponder his words, after which he recognized his style of speech, decided that this could not be. The guy headed for him, asking if he had recognized him after he had stolen his mystical arts. When he saw behind a guy of evil spirits, he was sure that he was the heir to the cult, young Wunvi. Without wasting time, he got to his feet, after which he raised his hand up, starting to release internal energy. Wunvi said that he had become stronger. It would be dangerous if he had not destroyed his demonic magic circle. At that very moment, the sorcerer directed energy to the ground, creating a huge explosion and raising a veil of dust. The guy decided that this was not like activating mystical art, asking the sorcerer what he was up to. In any case, if he discards this with his gaze of the dead man, he will be able to solve his plan in advance. But when the veil of dust dispelled, he was surprised to notice that this old man disappeared somewhere, disappearing without a trace. Wunvi said that he was not very good secrecy, and since he does not feel mystical energy, this is not an illusion. At that very moment, perfumes appeared next to him, indicating that the master of white bones was there, pointing to the sky. Raising their heads, they noticed a huge bird, after which they concluded that he still decided to escape. The guy did not know whether to call him a coward or praise him for the right choice, but it is impossible to let him go so simple. Suddenly, Wunvi noticed with a smile that from all the areas in which he could escape, he was not lucky. Meanwhile, John, who was in the paws of a bone bird, tried to understand why the heir to the cult is alive again. But now it did not matter. Since he seemed to him, then he has a way to get rid of him, so he needs to retreat. At that very moment, he felt anti-demonic energy, and looking down, noticed a lonely girl. Kugzin, without hesitation, pulled out a sword, after which she attacked the bird with streams of energy, overtaking the sorcerer. John felt unbearable pain, and at the same time the body of the bone bird began to collapse, scattering into debris. Watching this from the side, Wunvi said that this was his retribution for running away, sparkling heels. At that very moment, Kugzin landed next to him, and the guy greeted his sister with a smile. The girl looked at her brother in surprise, asking what he was doing here. He replied that he was cleaning the cultists with her mother. But the question of what he has in mind replied that the Jiangshi, whom she knocked down from heaven, he was from a demonic cult. Kugzin said that she came, as she heard that her mother was plotting something with a master hiding in these mountains. However, she could not assume that this was a demonic cult, and the guy perfectly understood her confusion. However, you need to send it back until the old man throws another trick and escapes again. He said that he would cope himself, after which he offered to help the raid, because right now he is protecting her mother. Hearing this, Kugzin immediately got angry, asking why they were the three of them here, without taking reinforcements with them. Wunvi explained that it was a secret operation, but he understood that she was very worried about her mother. The girl said that the situation is patho, so she would leave questions for later, offering him to run if it becomes dangerous. Having wished him good luck, Kugzin went to the rut, and the guy watched her for several seconds. Then he turned to the sorcerer, saying that he managed to rest well while he spoke with his sister. He invited the old man to get up, because he knows that Zhang should not have problems with recovery. At that very moment, a hand appeared from a cloud of dust, and the guy asked if he was trying to make him weaken vigilance. Having got out, John screamed angrily that his damned mouth was as vile as before. Then he rudely pointed his finger at him, saying that he had died, after which he asked what the hell was rushing again. Releasing energy, the guy replied that it was hard to believe in it, because immortality and reincarnation are the dream of every sorcerer. After that, he began to change his clothes, asking if this will be enough as evidence. John was dumbfounded, seeing the combat robe of the evil ghost, then again asked how he overcame death. I ignored his question. Wunvi told the old man that he needed to ask him something. He also advised him not to run away like a fool, offering to figure out in order not to complicate the situation. John replied that his chatter was still infuriated, after which he again began to concentrate energy in his hand. The next second, he pulled her in front of the guy, saying that he would tear his mouth into pieces right now. He called to his help to the Jiangs, who rushed to Wunvi, but he did not even budge. Using a storm dance, a riot of storm, he destroyed several animals in one swing. But after that, he immediately rushed forward, and as soon as John was surprised at martial arts, he immediately received a blow in the face. The blow was so strong that he flew into the air. Wunvi was fast, but according to information, he had not yet reached the level of peak. Then the sorcerer realized that this bastard was able to increase his forces in such a short time. He could not expect that now the guy uses even martial arts, which seemed impossible. It angered him even more, so he began to emit energy, pushing Wunvi away. The guy asked if he had any more trump cards in his sleeve, because if not, then this is disappointment. John ordered him to shut up, after which he decided to attack again, and Wunvi was surprised exactly the same attack. Frowning, he thought that even if the sorcerers were stupid, it could not be that he repeated her again. But at the same second, when the Jiangs were next to him, John used the explosion, but this did not surprise the guy. Reining from his place, John said that he did not want to spend his valuable Jianggi in this way. But this should give him enough time to distract the heir and try to escape. But at the same second, Winvi overtook him, and waving his fist, asked the old man where he was going. The sorcerer realized that his formation of mystical arts was broken, so he does not have time to use strong techniques. He is completely busy with the restoration of his body, and Winvi had already attacked him several times with his own hands. Going to him, the guy said that he had stolen his scrolls of mystical arts, but is still not capable of anything. John replied that this was all his fault, because he destroyed his demonic magic circle, depriving him of his strength. Winvi agreed, adding that this weakened him to such an extent that he runs away like a coward, and this upset him. Approaching almost closely, the guy said that he thought he could do more, put it stronger. He continued to provoke a sorcerer who only got angry stronger, again starting to release energy. Winvi watched his worthless attempts, thinking that even with his provocations, this is all that he was capable of. He would look at anything else here, and therefore could end this sorcerer once and for all. John tried to do something, but Winvi threw him to the ground with one blow, destroying his body even more. Looking at him, the guy said that the Jiangs of the demonic wheel is quite strong, but this is not enough. Suddenly, the sorcerer stated that he was surrendering, adding that he would tell him everything he knew, if only he spared him. Winvi asked if he had already had a dementia, after which he imprinted his leg in his face, throwing it away from himself. The guy added that he has solitary reinforcement chains, so he does not make sense to leave him alive. He decided to simplify everything and meet him after his death, and John finally realized that he would really die. His last words were that he could not die like that, but Winvi simply ignored him. But suddenly Winvi was on the seashore, realizing that the sorcerer nevertheless hid the art of restraining the soul to the last. It was quite unexpected because the guy could not think that John was capable of something like that. Spirits immediately appeared to him, convincingly stating that this was a rather advanced mystical art. It is a completely different level compared to the usual capabilities of the Black Bone Valley of the Ghosts. Winvi thought that even for him is too much. He undoubtedly has a connection with the association, when suddenly someone called him. John stated that he was locked in prison of his soul, but the guy calmly reacted to his statement. The sorcerer said that he put this valuable spell of his life, and even he could not get out of here. Then he asked how he dared to force him to take such a radical step, and the guy asked why he was angry at him. After all, he himself is to blame that he does not have spare plans in case his demonically magical circle collapses. The sorcerer, in displeasure, ordered him to shut up, while Winvi continued to mocked him mockingly. One of the spirits told the heir that perhaps they should first find a solution before enraging it. After that, John stated that he would drown his soul in his own, and he would steal everything that he has, doing his own. Winvi realized that the land on which they stood disappeared. It was hard to believe that the sorcerer possessed such an art. He realized that he was in the middle of the ocean, which makes his attempt to get out a little, or find the sorcerer. This mystical art is so advanced that it can create a very realistic space. They may look the same, but it can determine the structure, observing the stream of mystical energy. If it is previously worried about the gates of blocking, then this is an ocean stream. This is undoubtedly the fence gate. And if he goes, he will have to get to the Brother of Peace, where he can observe the whole structure of mystical art. But even here he cannot see the gates of death or the gates of life. The old man used his life to apply this spell. If we take into account his words and personality, as well as how much he appreciates his life, the purpose of the spell is to capture his body and not steal him. If this is true, then the gates of death in this mystical art is its drowning, and the gates of life on the contrary. Looking at his hand, the guy began to release energy, applying it to his chest, thereby dumbfounding the spirits. When blood poured out of his body, the ghosts were shocked in shock what he was doing, because it looks like suicide. Winvi asked them not to fuss. Death from anything but drowning. This is the gates of the life of this spell. At that very moment, he grabbed his heart, turned to an old man who decided to hide in him. Tearing his heart out of his chest, Winvi squeezed him tightly, while the sorcerer called him a final madman. Meanwhile, Gon continued to fight Jiangsha, using the storm dance, waving a whip in all directions. Unable to get to him, the zombies decided to break the distance in order to think through a different plan of action. One of them said that they could not last long, and the girl replied that she needed a gap. Looking at the warrior with anger, she asked how a person could be so strong that even Jiangs could not cope with him. At that very moment, Gon smiled, saying that before that self-confidence they had more than enough. The girl repelled his attack, saying that she was different from the rest, so she could compete with him. This was interested in a man who decided to use a scream of 100 victories, a crying flower, waving a whip. Zhang Sha thought that even she, the sword of the soul, barely manages. Other dead swordsmen would no longer withstand. At this pace, they will die from his hands. So she said that she would sacrifice them 3 to destroy him. She turned to the remaining dead swordsmen, ordering to give her life, after which she activated magic. Looking at this picture, Gon tried to understand what was happening to them and why they behaved so strangely, as if they had planned something. At that very moment, 3 swordsmen jumped on him, who tried to put pressure on him, thereby distracting. With a whip, a man with a smile asked if they thought to successfully take him with a simultaneous attack. However, they continued to attack him, even when he cut off their limbs, which was not like their behavior. Suddenly, he noticed Zhang Shi, who was already flying on him with a cunning and evil smile, wanting to be taken by surprise. The man tried to understand when she appeared here. Apparently, she was waiting for the moment when the dead would obscure his review. Even if he tries to evade, he will have to sacrifice his hand, and this cannot be allowed. But at the same second, when Zhang Sha's hand almost touched Gona, she was immediately cut off with a powerful blow. The 2 of them noticed a sword that stuck into the ground, and zombies felt anti-demonic energy. Turning his head, Gon immediately noticed Kugzin, who was worried about him if he was in order. Being surrounded by enemies, the man replied that thanks to her, he feels safe. At that very moment, Gon gathered his last strength to apply a decisive attack on Jiang's, depriving her of life. The girl asked if he destroyed everyone. The man with a smile replied that everyone was successful. Then he asked in surprise why she was here. She was nervous and asked in response if they should help Winvi. Gon replied that he told him to leave as soon as they were eliminated, and that he himself wants to defeat their leader. The girl was surprised, but the man added that the master looked rather confident, so everything would be in order. Meanwhile, the sorcerer asked Winvi how many lives he had, since he decided to pull out his own heart. The guy replied that this was the gates of his life. If he drowned, he would capture his body, and he could not return. The dumbfounded John asked how he could go to this so easily, because this is far from an unambiguous answer. The sorcerer wanted to insult the guy again, but he only squeezed his own heart in his hands, forcing John to shut up. At that very moment, he sharply moved to the jungle, guessing that the sorcerer had changed the space. All kinds of toxic creatures wanders here, and he cannot wait to see him from pain. First, water, and now poison. And this is all that he is capable of with such an advanced mystical art. At that very moment, he hit the tree trunk, taking out the lizard, and asked the old man to stop behaving like that. Suddenly, the animal released energy, forcing the guy to rudely towards what was happening. He was sharply moved to the sky, because of which Winvi was in a free fall, where, it would seem, it was difficult to find a sorcerer. However, the guy calculated everything perfectly, after which he calculated where he could be, and hit there with energy. Suddenly, a huge eye appeared in the sky, and a dumbfounded sorcerer asked how he could find him so quickly. After that, he began to move the guy in different places, and in the end they returned to the very beginning. John was angry with what tricks he uses to so easily find the gates of life. He replied that he was a genius. Why did he add that you need to catch the soul and immerse it in the world of fantasies, and used a network of fantasies to restrain the soul? Hearing this, the sorcerer could not believe that the guy recognized his name, which even more discouraged him. Wunvi said that he used one trick too much. He figured out the structure of this spell thanks to him. The name of mystical art is not just a title, unlike masters who declare the names of their arts. The sorcerers try to hide the name of their spells because they become more effective, the less the enemy knows about them. The name of the spell is a brief explanation of the mechanism of the spell itself, which gives the clue to its solution. The spell, the structure of which was analyzed, can no longer serve as a prison. John shouted that this was impossible because he gave his life for this spell, and it was destroyed so simply. When he inflicted the last blow, he ended up in the real world, after which he sighed heavily, saying that he was in business again. Why did Wunvi look at the witch's body, saying that thanks to him he studied the entertaining spell that would be useful to him? Meanwhile, the spirit that got out of John's body grabbed his head and asked himself if he really died. In response to this, the guy asked, "Is he really not glad to stay with me even in death?" forcing the spirit to tremble. Unable to stand it, he asked loudly how he reincarnated. If he tells this, he would receive any information in return. Grabbing his head, the guy trampled him into the ground, said that he did not fully realize everything because of his politeness. Then he asked how the sorcerer dared to bargain with him, after which he stated that he was asking questions, and he answers. Crouching on a stone, Winvi began his story by the fact that 6 years ago he died at the top of the sealed heaven. As soon as the combat robe began to subside with him, he decided to ask what happened later on the Tian Shan. He ordered the spirit to speak without missing a single detail, otherwise he could regret that he became his spirit. 6 years ago, at the top of the sealed heaven after he died, he took many elders with him. The heavenly cult was mired in internal squabbles. 5 of the 9 mythology of demons united and rebelled. They defeated the group of the ancient demon of the mythology of heaven, which with all his might defended the gallery of the leader of the cult. After that, they invaded the main palace of the venerable demon of the mythology of God to continue the rebellion. This was done in order to seize his mentor, wanting to completely get rid of the current government. If they also got into their own hands, the teachers also after getting rid of him, then only one group would resist. The rest would have no choice but to follow them in order to maintain power, but the feud was untied. According to rumors, they did not succeed in captivating the mentor, but because of this, another question arose. Having looked menacingly at the sorcerer, Winvy decided to directly ask what happened to his teacher. Seeing his eyes, John asked himself if a person could have such absurd abilities. He commands the dead. Although he himself is alive, he can truly be called a ghostly king. Now, having been in spirit, he feels this not controlled feeling of horror that he feels next to Winvy. But since he cannot obey, the disintegration must be avoided, so he decided to change the tactics. But as soon as he wanted to say something, he immediately felt something. The same concerned Winvy. The guy said that something was approaching, and at the same second dark energy began to gather around the spirit. Spirits warned the air that something was wrong. Winvy reacted in time and pushed away from the ground. Extending a trembling hand in front of him, John asked the air to help him, and he will tell everything he knows. The sorcerer began to beg him, but at the same moment he was absorbed by some kind of creature that looked like a flower. The guy was surprised that the soul of the damned master of white bones swallowed without leaving him not a chance. Why did he ask what kind of creature it was? But the spirits looked as shocked as the air. One of the spirits invited him to stay in the distance, because even by appearance we can say that this creature is dangerous. Suddenly, Winvy suggested that this creature designed to keep the secrets of the association. The next second he decided that it attacks, but the creature began on the contrary, to disappear in his own shadow. He could not believe that it escaped, appeared out of nowhere, only to gobble up the soul of a master of white bones. Number 15 said that he had heard this from the master of white bones earlier. It seems this is called a desire. This is not quite a monster, rather a phenomenon, an anomaly covered with many unknown secrets. It gives great power to the contract with her, but if you do not treat it correctly, it can absorb the soul. Winvy realized that the contract with desire has priority over his abilities of the ghostly king. It was annoying that this creature dared to take away the soul, which he tied the power of the ghostly king. Winvy had to be found out so much, but he lost such a significant source of information like this. However, this is not the end. There are still the remains of the ego master of white bones that can be reached. Releasing energy, he decided to take possession of his knowledge, albeit in pieces, but he will not let him go just like that. The memory that arose in the head of the master at that moment, this thought was to remain the brightest. Surely it will be associated with the association, and in the meantime, when he concluded a contract with desire. This is a gallery of the head of the heavenly cult. The elders of the valley of the ghost of the black bone and the white bone it seems he found who needed. Suddenly, Winvy felt strong pressure even in his memories, which was an earnest of him, and then he noticed the silhouette, deciding that this is the same bastard from the association, the sabotage that he was looking for. The face is not visible because this memory of the master of white bones, and he will not be able to see what he himself did not see. However, one detail settled in his mind. These were the eyes of the divergent with inverted yin and yang. This is all that he can get out of memories, but this hint was now very significant for him, especially if the abilities of the divergent surpass his chains of the ghostly king, which can lead to the problem. The guy realized that there was nothing more to catch here, so it's time to finish when he suddenly lowered his eyes down. He noticed how his fingers began to be covered with dark energy, which began to climb up his hand. Winvy realized that this is a break from which the desire came out, and now he is trying to absorb him. It becomes dangerous. During the study and memoirs of the Master of White Bones, he was learned by the Lord of Desire. He will be able to find out at such a pace about his existence, but perhaps he is capable of the worst, so it's time to get out. The guy strained all his strength and even bit his lip, but he managed to pull his hand out of the fault. Spirits immediately began to ask if everything was fine with him, because he was covered with a cold later in a moment. Winvy answered them that everything was in order, asking not to flicker, but he thought he almost got caught. Spirit said that as expected from the heir to the cult, he pulled out information about the enemy from residual thoughts. Winvy thought that he had received critical information that he intended to use. No matter how hard they try to bring their tracks, he will dig up all of them, so the associations only need to be weighted. Meanwhile, Hosan was sitting in his office, studying documents, glooming from time to time, in response to his thoughts. An advisor to the family of 9 dragons, Gvijuga, said that he should be very worried about Wunvi. Because of this, he cannot focus on business, exactly from the moment he found out that the young master had taken Gonu and his wife. The man replied that he also looks rather excited, so now he is not the only one. Juga said that if Wunvi returned to the head of the Master of White Bones, this may be very curious. Crossing his arms over his chest, the head of the clan asked if he sincerely believes that this is in principle possible. The interlocutor replied that the guy was capable of this, because his recent achievement is indicated precisely. After 2 months of rumors that he had changed, Wunvi defeated Yochan, then held on a par with Miss Kudzin. He also defeated the uninvited guests with her, which clearly indicates an increase in his strength. And besides, he put his wife Lisitsa on his knees, and because of him so many variables were introduced into his plan. The reciprocal actions of the Master of the White Bone and his wife allowed him to be easier to monitor the secrets with the movements of the cult in Namgun. However, this is all that he was able to calculate, until Wunvi said that he was going to attack the Master of the White Bone. When asked why then he did not stop him, the advisor replied that too many interesting events were happening, and right now he heard something extremely curious, after which he asked if he knew where the head of the clan was now. Hosan asked how he was connected with all this, to which he received an answer, that at the moment he was in the forge of Luban. Jug added that the head of the clan without a vacation taps with a hammer with the old man, the master of a special weapon. He does not know the details, but the young Mr. Wangwi requested something that aroused interest in both of them. Therefore, he tells him that the young Mr. Wangwi can be able to bring the head of the White Bone with him. Hosan thoughtfully replied that there were more than enough reasons, although he did not pay attention to them. The advisor said that they should think about the future and tell Wunvi about their plan on its entire scale. And if so, what part of it is to detach Wunvi, or they can leave it to themselves as they did before. Hosan replied that it seems to him that the advisor is inclined to simply leave him in ignorance. Jug said that he reaches the results each time better than they could have ever assumed. The head of the clan replied that not so long ago, Gon told him something that if you leave everything as it is, then everything will grow together, and that he will only harm himself, trying to keep everything himself. The advisor replied that it was rudeness to say such a thing to his master. Then he added that in this case, it would be assumed that the young master will still overcome the Master of the White Bone. After that, he bowed, adding that in connection with this, he would adjust the plan to make it even better. Meanwhile, Gon noticed that Wunvi was heading from the back, who apparently won. The man told him that he had not been for so long, and he already wanted to say goodbye, but he replied that he should believe in his student. Then the worried Kudzin ran up to Wunvi, asking if he was injured. The guy replied that everything was in order. At that very moment, the master asked what was in his hands, to which Wunvi replied that it was a head of white bone, dumbfounding the master. Gon began to ask why he drove her. Wunvi replied that he would put her on a stake, because he should let people know about his exploits. While these two argued, Kudzin was surprised to think that her brother really defeated the elder of the demonic cult. He was not so strong a few days ago when they fought, and now the aura emanating from him was strengthened overnight. But more importantly, he managed to draw into this mother. She never expected to see them together. But what led to this? At that very moment, the spirit behind her said with a smile that they were with this guy of the same field of the berry, surprising the girl. When asked if he has a spectral trace, the spirit replied that his talent was not so impressive. Kudzin did not understand what she had in mind, and why his talent was not impressive, because he is already so capable. The spirit replied that this was doing him better. He is a demon, although rather, it would be better to call him a king of demons. The ghost added that he devours everything that stands in his way. Such words made the girl be horrified. The spirit said with interest that he was a man, but somehow she was very similar to her, which was very strange. Suddenly, she advised Kudzin not to cross his way, because she wants to be the one that he eats, and not the one who would eat. The girl frowned, because she would never have thought that the spectral trace would react so much to her brother. The demonic cult began to act again, and Wunvi will become known in Sichuan as the one who destroyed their stronghold. It is extremely likely that he will become the heir to the family, but the question arose, what the mother will do then. Meanwhile, Gon asked what he was looking for. Wunvi replied that he had pulled out one tip from the Master of the White Bone. Then the guy turned to number 15, asking where the master could hide secret notes or treasures. The spirit pointed to the wreckage, saying that there was a room, which could only be included in the master and backed on. He was sure that the owner would find what he needed. The guy thought that there should be some kind of device underground. When Paul began to fail, Wunvi explained that this was the secret storage of the old man on which he recognized. Going down, the master noticed that he organized the notes and treasures quite well. It looks like a cipher used by a demonic cult. Here on the spot, it will not just interpret it. Meanwhile, the guy read the letter that these three, apparently belonging to the group of the venerable demon of the god Mythos. And below was the order to grab them until the leader of Mythos appeared. Unrea thought what he had found, what he was looking for. They searched the room and studied the notes that the old man did to take root here, and various letters. They grabbed themselves the funds earned by his work, and found a box with secret records signed by Namgun. Unrea said that they should move them until the demonic cult and the clan Namgun noticed and stopped them. It's not to transfer everything at a time, so the Rut is on guard, and Kugzin and Sanjan will bring people who will help them. When asked what he will do, the guy replied that he would follow the trail that the Whitebone Master left him. He received some information during the battle with him, and is going to check it while there is an opportunity. The girl suggested that this was a trap, but the brother replied that this information could affect the plans of their clan. Gon replied that he could not stop him, but one of the other 12 black ghosts may appear. Unrea thought that it would not be possible to cope with them so simply, but it would be inconvenient if someone else is with him. The guy said that he needed to guard this place, because it will become a huge loss for the clan if they do not save these things. And the only thing who can reliably transmit information about the incident is Kugzin. Even if they go with her mother, she will be able to turn everything in her favor, so only Kugzin can convey the truth to her father. Unrea said that he would leave a trace wherever he went, so they will send reinforcements when they finish here. The sister sighed and replied that she would follow him, as he would figure it out right here, so he should run if it became dangerous. Gon added that he would protect this storage at all costs, after which he asked him to be careful. The guy replied that they were too much worried, after which he announced that he had gone, and then quickly headed along the trail. One of the spirits said that even from their point of view, no one had ever trusted him as much as they. They see sincerity in their care for him. If they belonged to the same faction, he would share a cup with them. These words made Unrea smile, after which he agreed, adding that they were really good people. If these two were not in this unfriendly family of 9 dragons, his personality was unlikely to mean more for him than the body. And now he had people whom he wants to save, and he will spend all his strength on their protection and security. But this rescue mission is not Tan Unrea, but the heir to the cult, Yona Unrea. Closer to the morning, the guy got to the county of Taotzen, asking himself if so many people should be here. The perfumes replied that all the housing was bred due to the arrival of the Dark Lord, so people escaped here. Unrea ordered to divide and start the search that the Mythos and their pursuers could leave. Since there are so many people, apparently the only right solution is to observe somewhere from a height. At that very moment, he entered the building, asked the owner whether there was a place on the top floor. He replied that there was one table. Not having time to finish, the guy interrupted him, saying that he would sit for him, after which he threw a coin into the hands of a man. The owner led him to the table, proudly announcing that this was the perfect place for admiring the city. Unrea thought that demonic people wandering around the district could easily hide their aura. Fortunately, the remnants of demonic energy are still present, which means that they have not yet had time to leave the county. The spirit said that he had discovered a hidden observer, and the guy asked to determine the direction in which he was moving. Another spirit said that he overheard one conversation. It seems that these people know very well that they are chasing them. But due to the fact that they skillfully notice traces, the pursuers are not just to find them. 3 people were mentioned, while the pursuers counted only 9. And he is not yet sure, but apparently one of them is a demonic person of 9 mythos of demons. Unrea realized that only the mythos of the North Sea of the Klin demon could accompany people from the valley. They are located in the north among glaciers and snowy plains. Once they were known as the Icy Palace of the North Sea. But after the decline of the palace, the remnants of his followers entered the heavenly cult, and their cold is terribly strong, thanks to which they became one of the 9 demonic mythos in extremely short time after joining the cult. The precious treasure of the North Sea, Eld's essence, contains an immense amount of yin energy. It is a necessary ingredient for creating excellent jongs with masters of the Ghost Valley, because of which the Valley of the Black Bone took the oath of allegiance to the Demon of the Blade and serve as their hunting dogs. This means that the people who were attempted on the Dark Lord must obey the Demon of the Blade of the North Sea. When asked how the person from Mythos is strong, the spirit replied that they had hidden their aura, so he could not say. Unrea realized that it would be more complicated than he expected, after which he ordered to determine the location of their followers. The sun was already setting, and it took more time to search for followers than it planned. At that very moment, Unrea noticed how one of the visitors began a skirmish with the owner, showing arrogant behavior. The guy noticed 3, about his age. They wear decent clothes. Apparently, these are children from prestigious families. He will not say anything. 2 girls give a serious aura for 2 girls. They will probably be able to become as well, known as his sister. When the guest called his sect, Wunvi realized that he had heard about the sect of the Golden Sword in the cult. This is a new sect, founded 30 years ago, received money and power after establishing trade relations with the West. One of the girls said that it was worthless, although it is a pity that they would not try Taochan's tea, but there is nothing to do. Wunvi, I noticed that he wanted to impress the girls, but got the opposite effect, judging by his twisted face. Suddenly, the guest's eyes froze in surprise when he drew attention to Wunvi, joyfully asking how he was doing. The guy immediately turned his head, thinking that if he knew Tana Wunvi, this complicates the circumstances. Approaching him, the guest said that there were no places, and asked if he would be against if they approach him. Wunvi thought that, judging by his friends, they were not friends, although it was clear that he had no friends at all. Usually he would just have bombarded him, but he had no time to think about this, and he will leave as soon as he receives information. The guest waved to the girls, saying that there were places here, and they, in turn, thanked Wunvi for this. When they took their places, they immediately asked for a menu, feeling an amazing tea smell. At that very moment, the spirit flew to Wunvi and said that they found followers. As they said there are 3 of them. The guy thought that he finally knew everything he needed, when he suddenly froze, felt strong energy. Turning his head, he drew attention to a strong man who said that he was doing here, so no one to move. The guy sitting next to the Wunvi was not seriously scared, barely audible asking what was happening here. One of the spirits frowned and stated that their aura and the same weapon give out the swordsmen of the Lion sect in them. As the name can be assumed, they are unknown with their sharpness and excessive aggressiveness. Suddenly, the man turned to the girl next to Wangvi, asking if he was Sima Suni from the house of Chunha, thereby surprising the guy. The spirit explained that he heard that the Emperor of the Blade of Pure Sky at a late age had a daughter. This lady can be the same daughter. The Emperor is one of the 10 strongest martial arts. The leader of the Lion sect, King of the Blade of Leo, made a challenge to the Emperor. As a result, the battle ended in 10 strokes. Wunvi realized that they wanted to take revenge through the Emperor's daughter. At that time, the girl gave an affirmative answer. Flashing his hands in a respectful gesture, the man greeted her, introducing himself to Baek Doyen. At that very moment, he grinned, saying that as a representative of the Lion sector, he calls her Miss Sima to battle. Other guests knew that the battles with him always ended in blood, and could not think that he would appear here. Suddenly, another girl asked if he thought it was too rude, like that, and challenged to a person for no reason. Turning his head, Doyen aloud suggested that she was the younger student of the leader of the Snake sect, Lady Pure Moon Sumin. Looking at them, Wunvi thought that the second turned out to be the young master of martial arts sect of the Snake. Duyan said that this conflict between the sect of the Lion and the house of Chunha, so he does not think that the sect of the Snake will be honestly intervened. However, since Miss Sima is not able to win herself, it's not so scary if she attacks him. At that very moment, Sima rose and decided to accept his challenge, simultaneously asking Sumin not to worry about her. After all, if she continues to avoid such things, she will not be able to call herself a descendant of the Emperor of the Blade. Loosing, the man replied that it was bold, as expected from the sorcerer of the Emperor of the Black. Then he suggested moving to the backyard. He is quite extensive and perfect for a duel. Wunvi thought that he was in vain, while the spirit said that the followers fled along the lanes. Going to the exit, the guy asked him to lead him to the one who now needs help. Suddenly he was stopped that until the duel ended, everyone needs to remain in their places. Meanwhile, Duan loudly told the guests of this institution that they should testify their duel. Suddenly he pointed a finger at Wunvi, saying that he should especially do this as accompanying miss. I ignored him. The guy went forward, pushing one warrior who immediately pulled out his sword and introduced him to his throat. The warrior wanted to say something, but at the same second, Wunvi grabbed his face, after which he threw it to the side. All who were indoors were dumbfounded by such force, and the guy repeated to get out of the road. Turning his head, Wunvi, with a crazy smile and with a blood-stained face, asked why he could not just obey. The spirit was dumbfounded that these fools decided to get to the air, exactly when he was on a platoon. Other warriors grabbed the weapon, asking how he dares to touch a member of the Lion Blade. The next second, they returned to the attack, and Wunvi had already stood in a combat rack to repulse. One of them swung a ball and tried to hit, but the guy from him with a fist hit him to break his sword. Then he hit him with his foot in his neck, and throwing him aside, waiting for the next attack of another enemy. With exactly the same blow, he broke the second sword, but his fist went further, faced with the face of the warrior. Dawn and his minions silently looked at the beaten comrades, unable to believe what was happening. An elite detachment, with the power of which they command the whole province of Guju, was defeated with such ease. The man grabbed the sword and frowning, saying that a duel was waiting for him, so he was not going to intervene. But now he will have to show this insolent why his name is a Scarlet Blade, after which he rushed into battle. Wunvi thought that usually he would simply disarm them, but they really appeared at the wrong time. Having dodged the first attack, the guy studied the movement of a man who said that he at least knows how to dodge. But it is worth his blade to get it at least once, and it will be the end. But Wunvi continued to dodge. Even more angry, Doyen asked if he only knew how to run away instead of fighting. When the guy stopped, the man ordered him to stand and fight, after which he swung a two-handed sword. Wunvi only said that he was bored, after which he stopped the Doyen's sword with his bare hands, forcing him to crack. All the followers of the Lion Blade, as well as those who were called to the duel, were dumbfounded, and the man said that this could not be. At that very moment, Wunvi waved his fist, giving the opponent a powerful uppercut, thereby cutting it out. Looking at this, Sima said in shock that he managed to defeat one of the most eminent newcomers to Guju. Everyone watched in shock how Dajan's head was stuck in the ceiling, and his body hung limply. All the minions immediately began to surround the master, but he did not even show signs of life. At that very moment, they grabbed the weapon, rushing into the attack on Wunvi, asking him how he dares. Looking at the blades directed at him, the guy replied that they really like the word dare. After just a couple of moments, he scattered the entire group, leaving the latter in consciousness, slowly stepping towards him. The frightened guy called him a monster, and Wunvi replied that they were the first to attack him, and now they were called a monster. The warrior began to apologize and pray for mercy, sincerely promising that this would definitely never happen. Grabbing his hair, the guy agreed, asking not to forget to pass the message to the guys whom he cut down. Wunvi said that he would stop there today, but if they come across him at least once, they will find out what true hell looks like. From the fright of the guy, foam went from his mouth, and he was able to answer on the last power that he would definitely convey this. At that very moment, Wunvi disappeared. The girls were surprised to notice that he seriously took and left after everything that he had done. Her friend added that for a tea party a suitable time, in response to which she heard Sima's consent. Meanwhile, the girl thought that a new talent for their age appeared, and it seemed that his name was Wunvi. Closer to the night, a white-haired guy fled at all pores from the pursuer, who quickly overtook him. Throwing a throwing knife, he hit the target in his shoulder, forcing him to fall to the ground and writhe in pain. The pursuer said that he had finally got him, and he would make sure that this fate would overtake the rest of their garbage. Having grinned, the guy asked him to shut up, simultaneously called him a dirty heretic, unable to restrain his anger. Laughing, the monster replied that he could not wait for him to sob, begging for mercy. Then he began to telepathically turn to his comrades, saying that the goal was detained, but no one answered. Unable to stand it, he loudly asked someone to answer, asking why everyone was silent, ignoring him. It cannot be that there is absolutely no answer, even if they decided to drink bucks there. When he pulled out the sword, he heard the question whether he was scared due to the fact that the comrades did not answer him. Looking around, the pursuer asked if he violated their communication channel and who he was. Wunvi said that he could not believe that they still used the connection of spirits, and the monster did not understand how he knew about it. Suddenly it seemed to him this manner of speech of a friend, and the guy added that he was too slowly thinking. The rest of his friends noticed much faster. These words made the monster startle and turn around. He noticed a guy sitting on the fence dressed in a battle robe, but his face was hidden by a mask. The monster recognized the combat robe of the evil ghost and purple eyes, after which he stated that this could not be. Wunvi replied that, judging by what he saw, the pursuit of a member of the mythos excited him in earnest. Then he grabbed his neck and pressed him against the wall, saying that he should not hunt his people, but on them, traitors. Meanwhile, on one of the roofs of the houses stood a man with long white hair, which he examined the surroundings. Turning his head, he discovered the arrived young master, after which he heard the question if they ended. He replied that it would take more time to avoid all possible witnesses. The brunette called the Jiangs useless, and the white-haired man apologized for the delay. The gentleman replied that nothing was afraid, because the longer he was waiting, the longer the servants of the Wunvi will scream in agony. The subordinate wanted to say something, but the brunette interrupted him, saying that he realized that he was acting cowardly. However, he still clearly sees in his thoughts the expression on the face of this bastard, which makes him be angry. It was even when he fought for the inheritance, being one of the 10 pillars of demonic mythos, when he was defeated by a man, asking what the hell this Dolyak forgot here. The guy replied that he did not even own martial arts, and with only a chain he was capable of this. It would be dumbfounded and suppressed, because I could not believe that someone won him like a Wunvi. The guy added that there was no need to fight him, he was so weak, after which he asked to get out of here. He, the second heir to the demon of Miphos, and one of the candidates for begging a heavenly cult, lost everything in one defeat, after which he barely managed to reach the early level of the perfect stage, and this guy simply took and died. And if he kills each of his followers, Wunvi must experience at least part of the humiliation that he had to share. The subordinate dutifully replied that he would do everything in his power for his time allotted to him on this earth. At that very moment, they felt demonic energy, because of which they decided to take a closer look. Baksan said that this is a trace of the energy of the witchcraft of Mephos. There is probably a caster among them. At first glance, his abilities are nothing special, but the dead swordsman cannot cope with him. Baksan asked for permission to deal with this personally, to which he immediately received the approval of the master. When the subordinate disappeared, the guy thought that this energy was sent to the energy of Yona Vunvi. Meanwhile, Wunvi asked how he dared to put his hand on his follower right in front of his nose. Jangi replied that he simply followed the orders, but such an answer did not force the guy to loosen his grip. Then he said that he naturally understands that he does not mean anything here, and just serves as a pawn. The swordsman replied that he was infinitely grateful for understanding, but at the same second, Winvi pierced his body with his hand. Leaning closer, the guy said that Heavenly punishes all the traitors of the cult. He should not forget it. Pulling his hand, he asked him not to worry, because soon his comrades would follow him. Raising his hand up and squeezing his fist, Wunvi said that they would all die, while the swordsman began to break up. Also for a second, a guy peering around the corner recognized the battle robe of the evil ghost and lilac eyes. After that, the boy took off his hood, asking with tears in his eyes to ask if he was true, the heir. Winvi's face immediately softened, and a smile appeared when he replied that no one else could be here. Rejoicing, the boy ran in his direction, after which he hugged, saying that he was very happy, that he was all right. The guy said that he managed perfectly. He did not need to explain anything because he understands him perfectly. At that very moment, he felt something, and let go of the boy, said that he would gladly continue the conversation. But it seems an interesting individual visited them, so he asked the guy to stay away. He immediately hid. Beksan looked at the swordsman in surprise, saying that he did not think that there was a certain level of this level. Then he began to produce energy, adding that apparently they caught a larger fish than expected. Winvi said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and also did not think that the living corpse of the North Sea was still standing on their feet. The man was surprised, and again heard the question of how Dokliak Min Min, who was clearly somewhere nearby. Beksan replied that his robes seemed familiar to him. There was one man that he treated the master as well. Smiling, Winvi replied with a smile that he was absolutely sure that he was the one he was thinking about. The man shouted loudly and began to release, freezing the guys who asked Wunvi to be careful. Another spirit said that he knew that he was the second most powerful among the demons of the blade, but he was even more powerful. It seemed surprising to Wunvi that the spirit of ice was still pacing in the world, and although it usually lives for 10 years. Baksan replied that he thought the guy died 6 years ago, and was rather surprised to see him alive. He directed his followers to hell, believing that he was also there. However, as it turned out, he was very mistaken. The boy said from the corner that he was not yet. The second son of demon Mephos was obsessed with the mythos of the demonic god. Baksan said that he seemed to be barely able to survive. In comparison with the young master, his ki is much weaker. Now he is not even suitable for him in the wrapper, and therefore he cannot miss a similar opportunity for an attack. Winvi replied that he was mistaken somewhere, because his whole life was filled with difficulties, the struggle for existence. This is his life. For all his existence, he did not know the defeat, so he decided to give the opponent 3 seconds. The ice demon replied that he would see how much more he could allow himself to be so painful. When a man approached him, this was surprised when Wangvi said that they still could not learn a lesson. Once in a different dimension, Baksan asked when he had time to learn this, and where he expects him. Winvi asked in response whether his intellect was dull from proximity to death, because which idiot would run to the sorcerer? This was angry with a man who asked if it was a fog, a prickly, ghostly fog of a black bone master. Without waiting for an answer, he asked if the guy thought that it would be enough just to drive him into a trap. The guy replied that this was a little different, after which a flash of energy appeared in front of the sorcerer, attacking back. He realized that this was an unusual fog, and Wunvi used another type of witchcraft with him. The guy replied that this is especially for them, an advanced technique created using unique mystical techniques. However, its activation requires a huge amount of energy, but so far it has not enough it. Winvi asked himself if there was a reason to use it in this form, because the technique was not finished yet. Although his eyes specialize in effective and quick activation of this ability, he can use his eyes to prevent the use of too much energy. Bak noticed that he used a rather powerful equipment, but this is not enough to resist his strength. Wunvi agreed, but he will not need to use it to the full, when suddenly a man poured blood from his mouth. The guy added that he mixed poison into fog. If he uses his ki, he would receive serious damage. He will have no choice but to hold his breath and enhance chi circulation in order to get rid of the poison. Its ghostly poison is special. Ordinary circulation will not stop spread since everything happens quickly. especially when his body is complete yin energy, so his body is the best environment for its ghostly poison. Covering his mouth and nose with his hand, the man asked him to stop hiding like a coward and show himself. Unrea praised him for not being afraid to call him that, while Baksan felt a surge of pain. He thought that in any case he would die soon, so it would better kill both of them than he would die from his stupid outputs. At that very moment, the man used the sword of the ice spirit, a heavy incision to destroy this dimension. Unrea said that he knew that he could destroy everything here because he activated him in a hurry, although he still cannot but be disappointed, looking at the sorcerer who fell to his knees. However, the man decided to take advantage of the chance and reduce the distance when witchcraft was destroyed. Having blocked the sword with a bare hand, the guy said that it was too close to activate the ability again. Noticing the battle robe, Baksan said that he did not have such a large amount of energy as before. Unrea asked if he did not think about it in advance, using the strengthening of mystical energy. The guy thought to himself that in addition to this, he had changed, and new techniques appeared in his arsenal. The man was dumbfounded, noticing the martial arts, because he was sure that his dantian was completely destroyed. Then he realized that these are not the main martial arts for self-defense. His skills are now at the peak. Meanwhile, Unrea strengthened his inner energy, along with combat robes and a ghostly fog. He used a network of purple fantasy to force him to use his internal energy. The ghostly poison had to weaken it, but the sorcerer continued to make rather strong attacks. One of the spirits said that he should be in a terrible state, but despite this, he still attacks. The other added that Baksan was very offended by him, to which the guy replied that he was even more fun. It is nice to be able to check your skills, as well as see what can be improved. The world of martial arts has become new for him, so with every battle he discovers something new for himself. Fights in real life like this make the shortcomings of 12 parts of the tiger clear and obvious. This is enlightenment achieved through the analysis of the technique on endless parts and segment to try to find shortcomings. Martial arts are just a tool for expressing and expanding yourself. An important part is to perform actions correctly. Instead of copying other people's techniques, he needs to make them his own, and he has a little information on how to do it. He will change martial arts to meet his needs, such as right now. The movements of the back of the sand depart from originality, but the expression of his ice blade, like a comet. His sword is very fast and sharp, and those who do not pass will be forever buried in the ice, freezing to death. The man's own technique is based on the technique of an ice soul, and he will try to copy it. It was important to see absolutely everything, the trajectory of the ball, breathing, steps, everything to take it to yourself. You need to choose the trajectory of the sword that is suitable for it, and then use 12 blows of a cruel tiger. The next second, Unrea used new equipment, 12 wedges in the snow tiger, cutting the body of Bakshana. The man could not believe that he simply united his equipment with him and fully adapted his ice technique. When he called the guy a monster, Unrea asked why they like to call him in this way so much. After that, he brought down a new attack on the sorcerer, adding that he could be nicer and call him a genius. The next second, Baksan lost his hand, bleeding and falling to the ground. The man said that if he died just like that, he would be ashamed to see his young master again. Suddenly he jumped up, gathering his last strength, and attacked Unrea, using an icy soul, divine pain. Contrary to the risk, he managed to touch the Unrea chest, and then the guy tried to break the distance. Laughing, Baksan was pleased that he could catch the air when he weakened his defense. Then he raised his head with a crazy smile, asking how he tasted the poisonous ice that he had just tried. They told the spirit that this demon refuses to just give up, and in this situation, his whole body would soon freeze. Holding on to the heart, Unrea said that it differs from the old ice poison, which Baksan used before. The man replied that this was called an icy poison incurring his heart. He corrodes his heart until the victim dies. And the antidote does not exist from it. It was created with the aim of killing, so it will not work to recover. The guy was interested in why they pursue the Tan clan, why he realized that this was what they received from the association. The man froze, surprisingly noting that Unrea already knew about the association. He again did not expect less from him. And he was lucky that now he could get rid of him, but the guy replied that he was running back. On the way here, he took care of the 5 dead swordsmen made of black bone, and at the same second he got 5 pills. When he threw them into his mouth, the spirits with anxiety said that it was impossible to take so much at once, because it was dangerous. At the same second, a huge amount of energy began to leave the Unrea body, raging inside it. Baksan said it is pointless to fight because, as he already said, there is no antidote from his icy poison. The guy was well aware of this, but what he was doing now was not detoxification, but something else. With energy from the spheres of the ghost, he is going to resume the circulation of blood in his frozen vessels. The ice poison is certainly magnificent weapons, but powerful energy and poison energy are excellent resources for it. At that very moment, the guy began to emit icy energy from himself, which he scooped up from his own body. Baek-san could not believe that he converted the cold energy of the ice poison into internal energy. In response to this, Winkvi laughed that he was trying to kill him, the king of the ghosts, with icy poison when he is full of yin energy. Then he added commas with a smile that his intellect really degraded in recent years. The body of a man trembled when he realized that they were one of his equipment did not work against Winkvi. Suddenly he screamed hysterically and asked if he had mocked him all this time but did not manage to finish. His face froze in a grimace, after which he fell out lifelessly to the ground, surrounded by pieces of his own ice. Winkvi said with a smile that it was a completely meaningless death for the rank, like him. Looking at Baek-san's body, the guy finally became convinced that he had figured out his prey. Now he needs to get rid of the corpse using the technique of real fire so that he is not tracked. A boy who peeping around the corner said that he did not think that he could see it with his own eyes. He added that for him this honor, when he suddenly discovered strange energy and found a bird in the sky. He immediately shouted that this was the energy of the Valley of the Ghosts of the Black Bone, but Winkvi asked not to worry. When Ju slowly sank to the air, he added that this is their ally, and he is not dangerous. The bird reported that it returned after completing his task, and it was successful. Other perfumes began to praise him, saying that he looks much better than when he left them. Winkvi asked them to shut up, asking if he destroyed all the farms, to which he heard an affirmative answer. But there is something that he should report, even though everything went smoothly, but he found something. He took the beak of a red gem that pulled out of the feathers that he found on the farm. When the guy took the stone in his hands, carefully examining him, it immediately said that he needed to hurry. Meanwhile, Min-chin asked his subordinate if he was sure that this was the right road. The man asked him not to worry, because their animals could not avoid tracking his crying soul. The guy asked why he still could not catch this bird if she could not avoid his tracking. He replied that it was noise, and it was not their fault, but the leader did not want to listen to such miserable excuses. The man thought that this guy was an inferiority complex, after which he led him further. According to his tracking methodology, this monstrous bird never left this country. At the same second, Min-chechi felt something and sank to the ground, while subordinates asked what happened. The man immediately began to look around with worriedly, not knowing if the one who arranged all this awaits here. They felt the cold of Baek-san, and the guy explained that he asked him to track down the Miphos of the divine demon. The subordinate replied that this must be a very skilled person if he was able to survive against the Baek-san. They noticed a poisonous poison from Zero that a lot of internal energy is required to activate it, so much so that this will reduce the life expectancy of the user, and Baek-san still decided to use it. Meanwhile, the subordinate said that this was strange, because his tracking speaks about completely different. But he wanted to explain his point of view about the bird, but Min-ches sharply grabbed him by the throat, interrupting the speech. He asked the master why he was doing this, while the guy replied that he had gone with him to kill the bird. But there is not only nothing here, but also the obvious traces of the battle with someone very strong. He instructed him to track down, but there are no traces here, even though the icy poison was used. Getting a sword, he said that he needed to find a connection between the bird and the rest of the Miphos members. And now it is better for him to tell everything that he knows about the owner of this monstrous bird, not yet late. If he does not want to know how well the sword that Steel of Life works well, he will be forced to tell everything. The frightened subordinate replied that this was a division of 9 dragons, and this bird had to kill the son of the head of the clan. This was a separate department of the clan, where the plan for the murder of the Dark Lord was supposed to be implemented. The subordinate said that they tried to observe the right to the wife of the owner of the house in order to successfully penetrate 9 dragons. But this woman asked them to kill the second son, but the swordsman, whom they sent to the murder, went missing. And for some reason, Gudiao was mutated, and began to attack their own farms. The damned White Bone instructor is investigating this problem, but they have not yet completely entered the 9 dragons. Min-chi replied that everyone knows how secretly people from the Tang clan were, while the subordinate has jerked. The man replied that this is why it takes more time. They do not know what organization is behind this son. Just a few months ago, this guy was not remarkable at all, and was the weakest in the clan. But then, he changed dramatically, and began to interfere with their plans, as if he had been preparing his plan for a long time. Min-chi replied that this was suspicious, after which he decided to clarify the name of this guy. Looking into the eyes of the master, a subordinate stuttering replied that his name is Tan Won-vi. The guy was hot, thought about a man who was able to kill Baek-san, and who had the strength to tame Gudiao. A sorcerer who supports a guy who interferes with their plans, who, in addition to everything, is called Won-vi.